Yes. That's looking like it was, but then we can.
No? Why did he have leave, did he?
Yeah.
I don't believe that. Because
Yes,
same
I
with
thought he
the
had leave.
asset sustainment, I don't believe that. It's so artificial.
Morning, councillors, staff and gallery. Another packed gallery today. Good to see you all here. Welcome to our ordinary meeting for the month of January and Happy New Year to all. I'll begin today with Councillor Stewart doing the acknowledgement of country.
We'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of this land, Kabi Kabi, on which this event is taking place. We'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and the ongoing connection to the land, sea and community. We pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. We also extend that respect to all other people present.
Thank you. We don't have anyone from the Christian community here today to lead us in some prayer, so we'll just rise, for those who can, to have 1 minute silence to remember the residents and family members of our region that have passed away. Thank you. We have an apology from Councillor Waldock today. The confirmation of minutes, we have two recommendations there. The first one in relation to the ordinary meeting held on the 1st of... does it look right? Where are we? The minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 13th of December 2023. Is there someone to move? Councillor Spurgeon, Councillor Polly to second.
Can I raise a point of accuracy in those minutes, please?
Certainly.
I just have some concerns on 2 points. There is a reference to comments made by a councillor for point 6.4, which usually is not recorded in the minutes. Individual comments are, and for point 11.2, since an order was made by the chair, there is no details. An order made by the chair to have myself leave the meeting. There's no details pertaining to what that order actually reasoning in that, and I believe that hasn't been accurately captured within these minutes because that has to be reported elsewhere. So I've got some concerns on the accuracy of the minutes.
Is there anyone else that has wished to comment? Anything from a governance perspective? Anything you wish to add?
I would just say that with those, that matter will be dealt with through the CEO, but it will be up to the vote whether those minutes are adopted or not.
Yeah.
Leon.
Councillor Stewart.
I have an alternative concern to 11.2. So the regulation section 254 says quite clearly that and this is about staff bringing a recommendation, and staff put a lot of work, talent, whatever, into making sure those recommendations are appropriate. It's quite appropriate for us to disagree or throw those recommendations out or overturn them or whatever. But the regulations quite clearly say that there has to be reasons given for that, and it's my understanding that during that meeting and also in the minutes, those reasons for overturning 11.2 were not given, and to me that's actually quite disrespectful for staff as well as for the community as a whole. I'm not sure whether it's sufficient to vote against the minutes, because the minutes actually accurately portray what happened at the meeting, that there wasn't really opportunity given or views on the change in that recommendation, but I'm just raising that we need to be careful when we're going contrary to staff recommendations that we actually are clear in the reasons why, because it's actually part of the regulations 254.
Well, I think that point is interesting, Councillor Stewart, because it was quite a difficult situation to deal with. In that there was a fair bit of double jeopardy. If council
Point of order, discussion on the contents of the previous meeting is not allowed.
we've just had that discussion,
It
and I'm not
accuracy,
actually giving detail.
No.
The recommendation that was presented by staff was there for everyone to see. It's part of a public record, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about who said what or what was discussed. The recommendation that was presented by staff didn't allow council to achieve the outcome that they wanted to, and that if we voted against their proposed recommendation, it was actually a vote in favour of the recommendation because there was no instruction or action that would support council's wishes. So it was necessary to do something that wasn't covered by the standing orders or covered by regulations and make sure that the wishes of council were achieved. How we record that,
Mr Mayor, I understand your point, and that's actually what Councillor Councillor Milne brought up at the time, sorry, Councillor Jess Milne brought up at the time. Mine is more about, really, as councillors, we need to be recording why we oppose the staff recommendation that wasn't actually included by the discussion or the minutes.
the recommendation lapsed because it didn't get a seconder.
I realise that, but we still need to, it was still a staff recommendation.
If we vote against a recommendation, we have to give a reason why. If a recommendation isn't supported, it lapses. It's not there to be voted on. We don't have to give a reason why.
It's still a staff recommendation which has in effect been rejected. And that's my view anyway, and obviously we've got different viewpoints on it, so.
Councillor Deborah?
Can I suggest we lay this on the table to discuss down the track? Rather, if there's got issues and we want to deal with them, I think we should deal with them outside of this.
Look, it's potato. There was not a recommendation for staff that was on the table for consideration.
Oh no, I mean with a couple of different issues. I just think we might as well.
Are you moving?
Yes.
Yeah. You're going to move a recommendation that the matter lay on the table?
Yes, please.
There is a recommendation there from Councillor Deborah that the matter lay on the table. It doesn't need a seconder.
it needs a reason to lay on the table.
I believe it's given that so we can get
Recorded.
more information and have a discussion.
It's been recorded.
Or we're just waiting for that to be done, Councillor Milne, thank you. Give staff an opportunity to type. Good. The recommendation is there, councillors, that the matter lay on the table so we can get more detail and have a discussion in relation to the issues that have been raised. All those in favour?
The matter is that we're not approving the minutes. Really, that's it.
Well, there's
No, we're laying.
discussion will be had.
Yeah, around approving the minutes.
So all those in favour again, sorry? Against, the motion is carried, thank you. We have another item there in relation to minutes from the Gympie Regional Council special meeting held on the 19th of December. Is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second? Councillor Milne? All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. No petitions before us, but we have in section 5, Office of the CEO, a number of notified motions. Item 5.1, renaming of Gunalda Park for the late Charlie Freeborn. I will hand over to Councillor Jensen.
First of all, can I change the motion back to what?
If you just want to lead us through your report, and then we can deal with the
All right.
recommendation at the end.
Okay, the residents of the town of Gunalda have asked that the park across the road from the shop be
named after the man who created it, Charlie Freeborn, back in the 60s. He planted trees there, him and some of the other locals, just to put shade and a table for people to eat. And the highway used to go through there at the time, so people would stop there and have a meal. He kind of made it into a park, even though it was state land. He didn't have to ask anyone for permission back then in the 60s. His wife tragically died, and he scattered her ashes there, and every year in her honour he planted a tree there for her. His son tragically died in his 30s, and they also cremated him and scattered his ashes there. And then when Charlie himself died, they scattered his ashes there, and the town just feels it fitting that it be called the Charlie Freeborn Park. And that's just about all there is to it. There's a book here about Charlie. He was a wonderful man, and also Martin Muller at the RSL has said that he will pay for the plaque if you want, because he was a serviceman. So there being no cost really, which is a good thing. So I hope that everyone will support it, but I would like to change just the motion back.
If we can just deal with some questions first, because as soon as we change that motion, it's effectively on
okay.
we go into debate, and there may be some questions from councillors before we proceed to that.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
Just a technical, I just assumed he owned it, but then you said it was state-owned land?
No, it's state land. It always has been.
Oh, right.
And now it's got swings and all that, and it's called Gunelda Park.
Yeah, so it's
and,
official park.
Yeah, so the residents have gone, why did you name it that? You should name it this. That's all. Just
Yeah.
rename it.
So I just assumed he owned it freehold and donated it to the council as a park area. No.
No. But back in those days, he parked a truck over there, an old truck, for the kids to play on, and it sort of just developed into a park. It was just an empty block of land.
Councillor Stewart?
Mr Mayor, so you've got here that council consider, so I presume you mean that we go through the normal sort of process of, we've got a process in place that can move forward,
Consultation and stuff like that.
consultation, that sort of thing?
Yeah.
That was in,
Well, that was my first proposal says that.
Okay.
In the email.
So that could be included.
Can we-
Yeah.
Can we actually, for purpose of discussion and consideration, the recommendation that you're actually, Ms Mayor, sorry, proposing, can we actually have that on? Because if that's not the recommendation that the council's proposing, I'd like to see what the recommendation is.
Well, we
It's
can-
all in your emails.
We can get to
No, I'd
that.
like to see it on,
Yeah, well,
so we can have
we'll
our
get to
questions that are relevant.
Is there any other questions in relation to the detail around the report? So if you can move your amended motion, Councillor Jensen.
Okay.
it's very,
It is a very good recommendation.
It's actually her recommendation.
So my motion is that the council requests the CEO to begin the process, including public consultation with locals, with a view to renaming Gunelda Park at Balkan Street, Gunelda, for the late Charlie Freeborn.
Is it,
I've got it written.
Tanya, do you need that on the screen? Will that make it easier if Councillor Jensen just takes that up? That would be great, thanks.
So that's not an amendment, that's the actual recommendation.
That's the
Council.
recommendation.
Yeah.
Do you want me to write it down?
While that's being typed, can I ask a question, Ms Mayor?
If you like.
Through the CEO for process, in that process of consultation under a naming policy, that does include consultation with the traditional owner group?
Not sure what the policy states. Yes, apparently yes.
Yes, because I believe the name Gunelda actually has a very strong tie to Indigenous language, and that does need to be considered. Thank you.
Councillors, we have the intended recommendation there that was submitted with the notified motion. Obviously moved by Councillor Jensen. Is there someone to second? Councillor Devro. Councillor Jensen to speak.
I think there's been enough said.
Councillor Devro.
I just thought I'd add, the old expression, the idiom, blessed are those who plant trees under whose shade they will never sit. This gentleman, through several tragedies and initially just his goodwill towards his community, set up this place for future generations. I think it's fitting that we look into adding his name to the park.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne.
As the motion, the recommendation is about following the process through council to consider this renaming. I am supportive of the motion because it will enable a full consideration of the proposal from locals. There are other ways of acknowledging significance of locals within our community. I do have a reserve concern because Gunalda does have an Indigenous language connection, and it was from when the railway came through and they changed the town to Gunalda then. And I would really be disappointed that this was not reflected because the report in itself does call, town names vanilla and things like that. This naming Indigenous connection is actually not, it's quite fascinating. So I'm happy to have this go through the process of naming and have that through the policy come back to the recommendation and the outcome of that. So I'm supportive of the motion as for the process, but I'm with caution.
Yeah, the speakers for or against? Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think we all recognise that Gunalda is a strong name, but we're not actually asking to rename the town, we're asking to rename the park. It's a totally different matter, so I'm very much in favour of the motion. Thank you.
Any other speakers? With that, we'll go to the vote. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jensen to close.
Enough said. Let's go to vote.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. My apologies, councillors. I forgot to ask for disclosures of interest. Minor detail. I have a disclosure to give. Great. I didn't receive an email from anyone. That's good. We have a notified motion again, item 5.2, request for plaque at Carlo Point. I'll hand over to Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was approached by Ms Carolyn Simpson, who recently lost her husband. They both resided in Rainbow Beach. Quite well-known residents who've been there for quite some time. She requests a plaque on one of the seats at Carlo Point where they used to frequent quite often and look out over the water. As far as I'm concerned, it's not a big request. I think it's quite reasonable and it probably comes at no cost to council, so I'm very much in favour of moving this motion. Thank you.
Any questions? Councillor Milne.
To Councillor Smurden, there is a process that we have to undertake through the policies of council, and I'm just wondering why it's come to council in this format instead of actually being referred to the correct policy under the Monuments and Memorials policy.
Councillor Milne, the purpose of the elected representatives is to actually determine when policy applies and when it doesn't. So there may be policy or guidelines in relation to plaques and other monuments, but council has the overarching right to determine whether or not they want to apply those in situations. So you don't have to follow that. There are options, there are freedoms that we can exercise.
Thank you for your answer, Mr Mayor. I still direct my question to Councillor Smurden.
Do you want me to echo what the Mayor just said there? As far as I'm concerned, as he said, we can recommend that things do happen that don't follow due process, and in this instance I don't think there is a reason why we should follow due process. It's a small request from a family that's lost a loved one, and I'm quite prepared to move the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Jensen.
A notified motion is a process,
Correct.
so we're following a process.
Do you have another question, Councillor Milne?
I'll let other councillors ask questions.
Councillor Polly?
Just a technicality, because I think on page 11, last paragraph, it said that we would recommend that the staff do the plaque and affix it, but the recommendation is that the family do it. So, like, who's in control of that little process? I know it's only a small point. But
There would probably be there would probably be a need for staff to do that because it is our asset. So
We
maybe,
can modify the motion to,
Well, that's, yeah, just the way it reads, the family's doing it, like, we can agree to it, but then the council does.
I think council can do it in the interest of safety.
Yeah,
The motion is written as received by the council, even though that may not happen. But that is, if a councillor puts forward a notified motion, council staff will give the officers comments.
Yep.
But the motion stays the same, so it can be amended.
maybe you should amend it.
okay,
It's removed by the family.
can we remove by the family
Only after we've spoken
and
about
replace it
it.
with
Otherwise we've
council?
got to vote on it straight away.
Due to the seat fire.
Well, he's foreshadowing
Foreshadowing.
an amendment.
No, it's-
Is there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
I do have one for you, Mr Mayor, as you're allowing this motion. I'm just wondering if you've sought clarification on the Carlo Point boat ramp, because it is actually we're under a management through Transport Infrastructure Public Marine Facilities Regulation to manage that boat ramp. And it's not actually our land. And I'm wondering if this direction itself, or even motion being put up, may not be possible because we don't have the jurisdiction to do that in that land. I'm not quite sure. It wasn't classified, it wasn't unclarified in the staff comments. It was more that staff comments were to put it through the process so all of that information can be clarified. So I've just got concerned that we, as the motion is, we may not have jurisdiction to do that.
Well, part of that process would be to establish that. B, it's the plaque is to go on the seats that are located around that area. So there might be an option that there are seats that are on council land that can be utilised rather than something else. And I mean, I can't imagine the state having a massive issue if council supports this, and that would be part of the process of dealing with it. So, you know, people are the most important thing, and we're trying to facilitate something that a request from our community members, not get bogged down in trivialities and what may or may not be. If the state were to come back and say that's not possible, then we have to abide by that. But you know, from a council perspective, we're granting approval. If a body above us says no, then there's nothing we can do about it. So I'm very comfortable with the recommendation, and I'm very comfortable with staff carrying out the process and moving forward. Mr. O'Brien?
If I just say that we did actually take on board the actual query that Councillor Leon actually put forward last week, and we have investigated. It is actually at a state reserve. It is actually under council's control and management. We have actually double checked, and there is no issue in actually attaching the plaque.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Any other questions, councillors? I believe Councillor Snowden foreshadowed an amendment to his recommendation.
Yes, if I can please, delete by the family and replace with by council staff. Is that okay?
We have a seconder in Councillor Jensen. Councillor Smead to speak.
As I've said, I'm quite happy to move this motion. I think the Simpsons are a well-respected family in the Rainbow Beach area. I think in regards to due process, I think due process has been followed in a lot of cases in this motion, as has just been demonstrated by the looking into the actual, whether we can do it on that land or not. So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Jensen.
Honouring our dead is a very respectful tradition here in Australia. So I see in other towns plaques and monuments. They're a good thing. I like them. That's fine. I support this.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Councillor Mill.
Unfortunately, this is a difficult one for me because I did know Shane and I have spoken at length to the applicant quite recently. Unfortunately, they were not aware of this motion coming to council in this format, and they were not aware of the processes within council that is under our own policies. Their intent was to inquire whether it is possible to have a plaque fixed to the seat. It was never a flat request to have a plaque. They were happy with a yes or a no. There are other properly made requests, which is 7, as indicated in the report here, that have been made through our policy in council. And I believe that by approving this, and I did know Shane, and it was a very respected member of the community. It does set a precedent that we are not following process equitably for our residents, and that if approach is made to a councillor, then it can circumnavigate our own policies. So it is with heavy heart that I cannot support this motion as it sits, and I do urge fellow councillors to consider due process and our own policies and procedures moving forward and what precedent we are actually setting. So I do not support the motion.
Any other speakers for or against?
I'm not sure. Yeah, you know.
Councillor Devereux.
Thank you. Just in regards to following process, our policy for memorials and monuments, which we reviewed, not that long ago. Anyway, the thing is, it actually says council may at its discretion approve plaques, memorials or monuments. It is a process to do a notified motion. It's also written within the policy that we can do this. So I think we are following the process. I think it's important if you go to Maryborough and you walk around, there's just plaques about people, the community, people that have lived there, people that are living there, and it's wonderful, it's interesting. If you see something that does pique your interest, you can look it up. I think I don't agree with where this region was going, which was to stop people from achieving this sort of thing. I think it detracts from the community. So I am very much for this, and I would encourage everyone other councillors to support this. Nothing is being circumvented.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Polly?
I think just in comment
For
to...
or against?
Oh, yeah. So it's in relation to Councillor Milne's comment. So it seemed to me, the way I heard it, the family were asking, can we or can't we? They're a little bit like that. They weren't saying we want, they're just saying, can we, can't we? So this motion is saying, yes, you can. And since it's being supplied by the family, at the end of the day, we could approve this and then they might turn around and go, actually, we don't want to do it. But we haven't actually stopped them. We're actually given them permission to proceed. So I'm for the motion for them to proceed at their wishes. If that's the way I read the motion anyhow. So.
Any other speakers for or against? I'm happy to speak for the motion. I've said it a number of times in this chambers and during workshops that people matter more than policy. And part of the role of councillors is to actually ensure that there is a balance between outcomes that are in the public interest and controlling the bureaucracy. And when you focus on policies and processes and ignore decent outcomes, then you just support an overactive bureaucracy that can then bog everything down in processes that seemingly take forever. This is a minor request from a family for a plaque to recognise someone that was important to them and has been recognised in this chamber by councillors as being important for the community. I agree on some of Councillor Devereux's sentiments around it adds fibre to our community. When you walk around and you see a plaque, it's clear then that that people in this community mattered, so much so that they want to be remembered after they're gone. And that tells me, as someone that visited a region, that there's a fabric to this community that is about love and sharing, compassion and caring for people. And I mean, even if this plaque only meant something to the applicant, for me, that's enough. That it touches their hearts and may touch other hearts in time. So I would urge councillors to support the recommendation. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stern, to close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I see it, councillor's role is to assist the local residents. If a resident approaches me and ask for assistance, I follow it through and do the best I can for them. And this is what I have done in this instance here, and I'm very happy to move that this motion be accepted. Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Stewart, Councillor Polly, Councillor Smurden, Councillor Hartwig, Councillor Jensen, Councillor Devro, Councillor Fredman. Against? Councillor Mill. The motion is successful. Item 5.3, in principle agreement, Galloway Group. Will you be leaving that, Mr. CEO?
There's no particular discussion.
It's a pretty, well, take the report as read. Is there any questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
Who am I directing it to?
I can take questions.
I'm just wondering why this is coming to council.
There was an opportunity that was provided by the Galloway Group. It seemed worthy of council consideration, so it was brought to council.
Councillor Stewart?
Mr Mayor, it's really nice that the vast majority of these funds are being spent within my division. But I nevertheless asked the question about, how was it decided where the money was going? And I understand that Galloway would, since they are giving the money, would have a big say in that, but what consultation or what was the process of how the money was?
The group had been out, as you can see, that a considerable amount of their funds is directed towards the Mining Museum. And they had been to that museum under their own steam on a number of occasions and felt that, given Gympie's history, and particularly its past and recent mining history, that there needed to be work done to assist the museum to bring it to a standard that could reflect Gympie's role in mining and its local history. They were very keen to see an effort made to improve that facility to reflect Gympie's history. In relation to the other areas around works at 1 Mile Oval and the sponsorship of Heart of Gold, there was questions asked from the group around how can they show that their role in the community is not just about mining, that they want to leave a legacy that lasts beyond mining and lasts beyond the mine, and how can they, who could they assist in the community, and a number of suggestions were made, and they chose the ones that they wanted to choose. That was the process.
And where did the suggestions come from?
I made those suggestions. I had a list of opportunities for them, and they pointed to the ones that they wanted. There was no weight given to any particular item. It was these are things, these are groups or things in our community that would benefit from some financial assistance, and they got to choose what that was.
Can I raise a point of order? 39.9, use of communication devices within the meeting. I'm not sure if there's an emergency situation, but can councillors be reminded of that condition of standing orders?
Councillor, I have been very flexible in that space with every councillor this term. As long as councillors are listening to what's going on, sometimes, I myself have been looking at emails in relation to a matter that's on the agenda on my phone whilst I've got my agenda up there so I can compare. So I understand that our standing orders are very, very strict in this space, but I don't think those standing orders often reflect the needs. But I would ask councillors to ensure that we limit that usage as much as possible. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
Sorry, I did have a question, clarification through the social media about which councillors' pockets were going to get lined out of this, but I'm glad Councillor Stewart has answered that for me.
Let's make it absolutely clear, I had absolutely no say in it. I do wonder whether we should have more say, but I had absolutely no say in it.
No, you've answered it now.
The reality is none of us had any say. They were given a list. They were very, very committed to the Mining Museum.
Yeah, but
They saw the volunteers. They'd been there a number of occasions under their own steam.
just have
All the
another.
work of volunteers and said we'd love to put something to benefit.
Just another question, just regarding to social media, if the CEO could. It comes across that we're approving them to come here, but I'm assuming that the FIRB is the one, so it doesn't matter whether we accept this or not, they're coming as soon as the FIRB, approve it, they're digging. It's got nothing to do with our decision
There are
today.
a number of federal and state
Yes.
approvals that they need to attain
Yes.
that have nothing to do with council.
Yep.
This offer had been made or discussed at different times what they wanted to do for the community long term, and it's got nothing to do with those other
Yeah.
approvals.
That's what I'm just wanting to say, that the fact that they're coming is outside of Gympie Regional Council's control. This is just an ancillary side. If you're coming, we want a piece of your royalties. And so this goes to my next question. Was this figure based on any kind of metric? You know, when people dig coal out of the middle of Queensland, state government holds their hands out for a percentage of the royalties. Are we getting a percentage? That's just a random figure?
This is an offer from a company to give our community money.
Yep.
It's not a royalty thing. There's no legislative requirement. They don't have to do this. They want to have they want to show the community that they're not about, your traditional lunar landscape mining where you come in and you take and you go. They want to leave a legacy behind that is beyond the life of the mine, beyond the life of the resource, and give something to the community. They don't have to do this. There's no legislative requirement. This is just a goodwill gesture from individuals. Councillor Fredman?
Mr Mayor, it's a question as to whether we can legally even accept this recommendation. There's two parts to this. One is it's an offer. Secondly, where does it fit in the process of them starting mining? I don't think we can even note an in-principle agreement. It's written on a piece of paper. They've got a huge way to go before they actually start mining, let alone making money. It would then need to be a formal council agreement, rather than an in-principle agreement. The other thing is we're vulnerable to, as has already been noted, the gossip as to what the background to this is. I'm just a question. Is this a legal motion, and shouldn't we instead just receive it? Receive the letter and show no sentiment on it. I appreciate that it may be...
Well, there is no, whether we note or receive it, there is no sentiment. This is just for council's information and for the community's information. There is... it's an offer from a company to assist the ratepayer. It may be down the track that a future council says, look, we don't want these funds, but there's no obligation for us under this recommendation to take those funds. It's just for councillor information and the community's information. Councillor Devereux.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I ask, what is council, just to try and so we understand the to and fro of this, at what point does council get involved if it is approved, and what will council be expected to vote on at that point?
In terms of the recommendation?
No, in terms, so that we know if this is, I see this as a sweetener for the public. It's a marketing thing. I think it's a good strategy for the company to say to the community, look, if we come in, there's going to be benefits beyond just employment, benefits for the community. So I acknowledge that, and I think it's a good move on their behalf. I'm just wondering, given the idea that it might be seen as, will they say no now that there's that on the table? Is that going to sway what council thinks? What will council actually, as in the council, be expected to vote on potentially down the track if it's approved by state?
I'm not really sure. I don't. We voted on lifting the URA a number of years back, and that was our step to start this process.
That was just to allow them to look. Yeah.
That was to allow the opportunity for mining to recommence and exploration. And from that, you then move to state and federal approvals in relation to environment and access and those sorts of things. I don't know if that answers your question.
Not really.
Through yourself, Chair. Look, the answer to your question is not fully known, to be honest. It depends on what decisions other entities make and what submissions they've put in. So, unfortunately, we don't know the full answer to that yet.
Okay.
We can make sure we monitor and provide that answer when it does come to it.
So in terms of zoning, say, or whatever, is the state able to say, yes, you can do it, and we don't have to do anything because they've made that decision?
They can do that like any priority project.
Okay.
And there has been representations on the state throughout this process.
Okay, that pretty much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, there's no zoning on land underground.
Yes.
What they do there doesn't fall under our planning scheme. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne?
I'd just like to follow on, Mr Mayor, from Councillor Fredman's concerned. The recommendation does have council note the in-principle agreement. However, the in-principle agreement supplied with the agenda says it will also require endorsement by resolution at the next ordinary meeting of the Gympie Regional Council on January 24th. My concern is if we note the in-principle agreement, it is a technical endorsement of the principal agreement, and I'm just wanting to understand, and probably might be the government's CEO, noting to me was we've read it. It had no actual binding or power by the word note, because that's what the recommendation and therefore resolution of council could potentially be. But the in-principle agreement does actually contain the words endorse, and I'm wondering if the note...
I think the intent of the word endorse was that anything that happens in relation to their offer must be endorsed by council. So particularly, with the $2 million they've offered for the upgrades to the mining museum, that would have to be endorsed and approved by council, because it will be our asset. It will be something that ratepayers have to maintain. So I think the intent of that wording was to make it very, very clear to the Galloway Group, even though you're offering this money, there is a process to go through and it must be endorsed by council. It's not just simply a case that we will accept the money willy-nilly.
I can add to that through the chair. So, noting generally, in a reasonable person sort of way, means that you've read it and you understand what's being written. Across the spectrum of what you're looking at, this is a signed agreement with all pieces in place. This is noting in principle we're well down this end, so it's quite, light, but it's a transparent process so that you can see what, and we're letting the public know what's going on. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
Councillor Deborah?
I'd like to propose a change to the motion, if I could.
You changed it.
Just to make it more clear, hopefully this will help clarify for Councillor Fredman. So that council note receipt of the in-principle agreement. And then letter. After
note receipt of in-principle
agreement letter for initial funding contributions.
Mr Mayor, just a matter of due process. I believe the original motion needs to be put up and an amendment can be recommended. It's not a notified motion. And their recommendation, I believe that's...
But
I know we have done.
Councillor Devereux is moving an amendment to the recommendation.
But
So at any point in time, a councillor can move a recommendation.
My understanding of the process is the recommendation needs to be moved and seconded to become a motion, and then that motion can be amended. That's the process I understand.
Through Chair, best practice would be that if you do note a change, you can vote on that change when it happens, so that it's all clear to everyone.
So he's foreshadowing amendment, pretty much.
If the chair's
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Friedman.
I repeat again, there isn't and there can't be an agreement, in my opinion. I believe the wording could say note the offer.
Yes.
I don't go at all that we're entering an agreement. It's very generous what is in the offer, but it's the wrong time to call it an agreement.
The council note the offer of funding / contributions towards community projects. Are you happy with that?
Yes, all right.
Is that a yes?
The councillors, we've had good discussion. Is everyone comfortable with the recommendation changes that have been made?
CEO's change.
Councillor Devereux and Councillor Freeman, are you both
I'm
happy with that? Yep, you're happy with that. You're looking to move that recommendation,
Yes, please.
Councillor Devereux? Councillor Freeman, looking second. So the recommendation, if we can just move the amendment down, please, so there's a bit of a gap between the two. Thanks, so we can do. So we're looking at the one that's not in bold there, councillors, that council note the offer of funding towards community projects of 2.75 million by the Galloway Group Limited. Moved by Councillor Devereux, seconded by Councillor Freedman. Councillor Devereux to speak.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this is a very generous offer from the Galloway Group. If this is what they're intending to do in terms of the community, I think that's a wonderful thing. It would be nice if some other projects around the place were similarly as community minded as what this appears to be. I have no real idea about mining in any sense of the word, except for using everything that comes out of the ground. So a bit like me with meat. I've never actually done butchering. But it is nice to see a large company that's looking at spending a lot of money and obviously making a lot of money, you would assume, or they wouldn't be doing it, actually looking towards the community and saying, well, what can we do there? And I know it's all marketing and so forth. Great, bring that on. That's my sort of marketing.
Councillor Freedman.
This is purely an offer. I'm not even saying whether the offer's generous. Given the size of the project potential, it should be offered more. Just, I'm happy we're not discussing in this motion, we're not alluding to the fact of whether it's enough. All we're doing is noting it. Down the track, when the approvals are in place, in the next council, we'll probably have a whole different set of parameters to consider. It's just important to realise this is an offer, big deal. It has no weight, we're just noting it, and we're being ambivalent as to whether or not it's generous. As far as I'm concerned, the motion's quite plain, quite clear, very vanilla. It's on the table, it can sit there for months, years, whatever.
Who speakers for the recommendation? Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Miller.
I do reiterate that I have concerns of this offer being presented to council at this time or in this format. However, I believe it's been reassured that by the motion that is up only having the word note in it, which essentially means I have read the offer. I'm comfortable in supporting the motion as written, but I highlight that it appears to have absolutely no meaning whatsoever other than I have read it. So I do have reservations on why this has come to us, but the actual motion there I can support.
Any other speakers for or against? I'm happy to speak for the recommendation. As Councillor Freedman pointed out, and Councillor Devereux, that there are other large projects that are occurring in the region, and they have a significant impact on the amenity, and we've seen some already out in Beluga. And the ones that are proposed for the future will have a significant impact to the amenity of our region. And there has been conversations had around legacy projects to compensate or assist the community in understanding that they'll carry this weight for the rest of the state. And it has been challenging to get them to commit to something that relates to supporting the community. I'm very grateful that this company who would like to come to Gympie and create opportunities for people are seeing it beyond just what they intend to do, but rather leaving a lasting impact for the community. Whether it's generous or not, I guess that is a similar discussion to Councillor Fredman's hairstyle. Is it suitable? Is it vanilla? Or is it just out there on the edge? But I think it's a step in the right direction, and it shows an intent, and it's good that these people wanted council and the community to understand that they have an intent to be here for more than just mining, and that they are committed to the community. And I would ask and implore other companies that want to spend much more in our region and will affect the amenity, that they should consider something very similar and come forward and support the community that will bear the weight of what they intend to do above ground. So I'd ask councillors to support this recommendation. Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, yeah, I support the recommendation. One of the concerns I've read about in the public sphere is concerns about the effect of mining on the town, and also note that the indoor bowls hall has some issues, partly due to flooding, partly due to an old mine shaft, but modern mining is very different. And I think there'd be virtually no effect on the urban or even the rural areas of the town. They'll probably enter the mine from the industrial area. So I see a lot of positives in the mining company being involved. I think there's probably a lot of steps to go, as you said, probably including finance amongst other approvals. So it may actually take some years for this money to come through by the time they start. I don't know how far through the process they really are. So I'm not going to hold my breath for it, but certainly look forward to seeing the employment that the opportunity brings and the benefits to town. So I'm very much supportive.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Deborah to close.
Nothing more to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.1. Hand over to Mr Lewis and Ms Pasrell. The 23-24 budget amendment.
Good morning, councillors. Through you, Mr Mayor. This report recommends an amendment to council's budget for the 23-24 financial year. It's part of our regular process where we go through and review our expenditure and our revenue streams and look to amend those. There will be subsequent reviews that are coming through later in the year, which may well offset some of the changes that we're presenting today. But basically, this report, if we look at it, we delve down, there's two basic items. We've overestimated some of our revenue in relation to our RMPC works and gravel revenue. So that basically increases our operating deficit, excluding extraordinary items, to 1.66 million, and including extraordinary items to 8.03 million. Bearing in mind that the extraordinary items are things like our ERP project, our Southside Sewage Scheme, which we are classing as extraordinary, and they're basically in operating because of the nuances of our accounting standards. So at a forecast operating deficit, excluding those items of 1.66, we're still well within a comfortable range from a financial perspective. In relation to capital, The program increases from around 112 million to 160 million dollars, probably the largest capital program this council's ever seen. But the main reason for those increases are an increase of around 32 million in Reaper works, and also an increase of 19 million in the voluntary buyback scheme, which is really good news for our community. Reflects that we're moving vulnerable people out of the impacts of flooding. In relation to our long-term financial indicators, as I said, the operating surplus ratio is negative for a few years, but that reflects the ERP project, Southside Sewerage and the planning scheme, and all the other indicators are relatively positive. So, and as we move into the formulation of the 24-25 financial year, we will look at how those ratios are being disclosed and incorporate the new financial ratios as recommended by the department.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Jensen?
I don't have any questions. I want to change the recommendation.
You want to amend the recommendation?
Me? No.
Councillor Stewart?
My question relates to, there seems to be a big change from one month to the next. In that the next report, it's about the first 6 months of the financial year, indicates that we are doing well operationally, and yet you're saying that over the whole financial year we're going to do badly operationally. So what's the change from the first 6 months to the second 6 months that indicate that this is negative
The first
turnaround?
budget review. Basically, it's those two revenue streams. That's the only real change. If we've overestimated some of our revenue, and we're bringing that to account. As I said before, in the next budget review, we've actually got some further emerging issues that we'll bring to account. One of them is depreciation, which reflects, I guess we've got about $90 million in WIP at the moment, and as we bring those to account, we'll have to increase our depreciation. This budget review, and I guess what's happening is if you look at the financial report, there's no really emerging issues to date in that report, but this budget review reflects where we believe we will be at the 30th of June, as opposed to where we are at this juncture.
If I can, Mr Mayor, in response to that question, just expand it a little bit. The end of month financial report is a historical report. We're looking backwards, and it's based against what we believe was going to happen each month up until the end of December. As Mr Lewis said, the budget review is very much a forecast of where we think we're heading for the next 6 months.
But still a forecast. The best predictor of the future is often the past, and so there must be some big change to indicate that we're going to go from being ahead to being behind.
Yep. So based on year-to-date estimates of our revenue streams for internal quarry works and RMPC, we don't really achieve what we anticipated in the original budget.
Councillor Polly?
So understand with the motion we're doing two things. So you're looking at the budget just for the next 6 months. You want to modify it, fine, whatever. But then also the long-term financial forecast. So I know that's a lot more nebulous, but I suppose I looked at page 94 of the report, which is the very first page. A typo. It starts in 2024, and then the year 2025 gets repeated every year to 33. So just the headings are wrong there. But I suppose I was just more concerned about the fact that I think we look at wage, because I know you're guessing, educated as best you can, but the employee cost of wages are physically going down in 3 years' time. But I've never seen wages go down. They're always up, and you're going to employ more people.
That would probably be the result of the ERP project coming to a conclusion.
Oh, okay. So there'll be a lot of staff leaving it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of temporary staff on board. Yep. So as that project comes up, then we'll reduce our employee costs. And that's why you see in those financial years the operating surplus starts to mitigate back towards the surplus.
Elected members, I've returned from leave today. I do think these questions are important for elected members to be across in any sort of revised budget position. So if it's useful, we could take it to a workshop well, you can have a look at it in more detail and we can go through the details if required.
If that is what, if councillors would like the changes in the budget discussed at a workshop, then we need a recommendation to suggest that.
Can I ask a question on that process? So, does that affect anything moving forward without adopting this budget review? If we do that, because it will delay another month. It's just a question because there's processes, and I think there's legislative updates we need to do in budget reviews. I'm not sure.
So council doesn't, through Mr Mayor, council doesn't have a budget review at all during the year, but what it is required to do is change its budget when it's aware of its forecasted position of 30th of June is in variance to its budget.
It doesn't have to be a month.
I mean, you could effectively, the legislation can't force councillors to adopt something if they need more detail on it and they want a better understanding, particularly when it relates to financial sustainability. If a different path is taken, staff will still get paid, it will still be business as usual. It will just be a month longer before we adopt a different forecast. We're aware of it. Councillor Milne?
Sorry, just more clarity, Mr Mayor. It does have number 2, it's the Capital Works program, and I did note there are some new projects in the Capital Works program, and we are modifying some other projects in that Capital Works. Does it affect those projects that are in the Capital Works program if they're not adopted today?
Not through Mr Mayor, not to any great extent.
Supplementary, Mr Mayor. So those projects that they're not started, they already have started, and they get endorsed retrospectively.
That's right.
Thank you.
So councillors, if you'd like more detail on this, which I think is the consensus of the room, we'd need an amendment to.
I'll do that.
Councillor Jensen, you have an amendment you wish to make?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Different recommendation?
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment that this matter be brought to a council workshop as soon as possible to discuss the change in expenditure that impact our financial viability ratios.
We have.
Is that a lay on the table motion?
No.
No.
Just bring it to a workshop.
Or lay on the table just means
Take that up to
comes back to us. It has to come
staff
back.
there to make it easier to type.
This doesn't have to come back to us.
It's going to a workshop.
A lay on the table.
You're allowed to have to come to the
Lay on the
workshop.
table for that reason, yeah. To lay on the table must come back to us in some form.
This is pretty specific.
Yeah, to just recommend that, maybe it just goes to a workshop.
In terms of the statement,
Technology.
would we lay this on the table or would we take this?
Well,
Lay it on the table for that.
I think there is a lot of,
Either way.
there is a lot of conversation that councillors want to have, which a workshop is probably more an appropriate forum, where it's more about the discussion, it's more about the detail. So I again, potato. At the end of the day, councillors want to have a better understanding of the detail around finance, and that's what we're trying to achieve. So we have a move by Councillor Jensen, someone to second, Councillor Devro. Councillor Jensen to speak.
Oh, it's quite simple. This is ratepayers' money. It's not our money. We need to have a better understanding of how we're going to use it. And there's just way too many questions in here to be asked today.
Councillor Devro.
Thank you. Yeah, it is a bit of a shock, particularly given other adjustments we've already made. And I think before we go down the slippery slope, we've got to see if we can understand why.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Jensen to close.
There's enough said.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hatherwell. We have item 6.2, the December 23 financial report. Thank you.
Mr Mayor and councillors, this is our usual monthly report for December. This is presenting the position of council year-to-date actuals compared to where the forecast for year-to-date budget is expected to be. At this stage, we are tracking ahead of where we thought we would be operationally, and we're in the body of the report. There are a number of explanations for any major variances. If you've got any questions.
Questions, councillors? Councillor Mill?
Mr Mayor, I was just wondering, my memory is evading me, what our benchmark is for a sustainability ratio. I think it is. It does say it in the report, and I did mention it last meeting.
Sustainability. 90%.
It is,
Operational?
yes. Yeah, it's our unrestricted cash is slightly below the benchmark.
Yep.
What's the benchmark?
The benchmark at the moment under the old sustainability ratios is between 0 and 10 months.
Yep.
Recommendation is usually, rule of thumb, 3 months of unrestricted cash. At the moment, we're working through a huge influx of cash through subsidies. Some of them are actually payments in arrears. So the cash is being worked on to make sure that we have identified what's constrained and what's unconstrained. So it is slightly under, but we're also about to start running our next rate number as well.
So you're saying it's slightly under the 3 month mark?
The benchmark does change with the new sustainability ratios, which we're going to start reporting on as soon as we get the modelling from QTC.
And when we started the term, in relation to our unrestricted cash, were we close to 3 months when we started?
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, we were managing our 3 months. It dips below the 3 months occasionally, but the majority of the time we've been managing to have that ratio within parameters.
Councillor Mill?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just to clarify, our 3 months in estimated millions of dollars, because I mean, if you get our overall, and you divide it by 4, it's about 30 million. So is that indicative of approximately?
Approximately, the 3 months is based on your average monthly spend, so that's cash out of our bank. It's dependent on the month in question, and obviously there's a huge amount of work happening at the moment within council, so the outflows at the moment are higher than usual, so we have to take that into consideration as well.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Jensen?
The workers' comp premium being higher, is that because of lots of lump sum payouts?
Through you, Mr Mayor, I think that the insurance industry itself, and workers' comp is certainly insurance, has had a significant number of shocks. The CPI escalation across the whole of Australia, the world in fact, has impacted this as well as whatever claim history we have.
Lump sum payments don't go through workers' comp.
Right.
Yeah. Councillor Deborah?
Thank you. Through the Mayor, so the lump sum payments would be in the salaries wages? Is that correct?
It's up above, I just read it.
I'm looking at that 1.5, that is a extremely high figure. That's a variance which is costing us more, is that right?
Through you, Mr Mayor, there's a number of contributing factors to that, including in part the ERP project, because the model for delivery of ERP was that we're going to engage consultants, contractors. We've changed that model and we've actually engaged additional staff, fixed-term staff members. So that also contributes to that drop-off of employee costs. And it was part of our budget review. We were going to reallocate those costs between materials and services and employee costs.
So in our accounting, if we were going to take on contractors, in our accounting it would be seen as an expense, whereas rather than using contractors, we've brought staff on board, so that actually comes under a different category, and that's why part of it.
But at the end of the line, that should then balance out fairly.
Potato, yeah.
It's the word of the day.
It is. Yes. Any other questions, councillors? If not, we have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Polly, someone to second. Councillor Mill, Councillor Polly to speak.
I think, like always with these report's a lot of emotions attached, either positive or negative, but different to the previous motion, which was about forecasting, this is just history, so it's merely stating what has happened, and I think clarity around that is the most important thing, so at least we know what actually has happened in history, so I'm happy to receive and note the report as tabled.
Councillor Mann.
Yes, this is a legislative requirement for us to come to council. It is historic, so we are reflecting back, so it is a receive and note. It is a little sobering to see that unrestricted cash flow coming down, but there are reasonings behind that, and I do know that staff are working very hard to try and bring that back up to our ratios that are acceptable standard. And I did reflect on that was successful recruitment, whether it be in the RP project or across the board within council, which indicates to me that we are starting to fill those positions and hopefully taking some of that strain off of our staff that have been over compensating for those lack of recruitment vacancies. It is a historic look at what could come forward, and I'm hoping that we can find other ways of funding, and especially that funding my infrastructure charges for our capital to hopefully get some of that out as well. So I'm happy to receive a note, and I look forward to seeing some promising stuff with January.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Polly to close.
Nothing further to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.3, report. Another vanilla report.
Mr Mayor and councillors, this is our regular quarterly report on the performance of council's investments. In accordance with our investment policy, which was adopted as part of our annual budget meeting, council officers are reporting that today our investments are doing exceptionally well compared to where we forecast they would be. We have placed deposits up to the level of our policy in local institutions, and we continue to monitor the interest rates on offer from those institutes. At this stage, the majority of our holding is with QTC, and that gives us flexibility to call back those funds on a daily basis if required.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, I was just wondering, what was the original figure? What's this adjusted from? Did we expect? What did we predict it was going to be that we would
The
earn?
original budget for interest was 3.08 million, and year to date we're already tracking. We've already received 2.3 million.
Right.
So
In where we're looking at how much more we're going to spend and we need money for this will go some way towards.
yes,
So it will go towards the operational budget, or
Operation.
through you, Mr Mayor, this revenue is basically part of council's funds which we can utilise for any operational or capital projects that are required.
so it should
Should help.
chip back a bit. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Polly.
Mr Lewis, I take it the size of the working cash at 1.5 million is irrelevant. It's just churning over. You've got enough money to pay next week's bills, and then you just keep.
We keep that as a minimum.
Yeah.
Balance, just to maintain our operations.
Yep, and the rest was just invested at GDC. Yeah, which so it was our call. No.
Through you, Mr Mayor, it's a snapshot. So as at the end of December, we had that amount of money.
Okay.
Quite frequently, our working account is down to about $200,000 or $100,000. We try and reap every single ounce of interest out of our investments, and we only pull back money the day that we need to pay it out.
Hey, that's fine.
Councillor Devereux.
Thank you. Just through the Mayor, I think it's important just to note for the community, when we say we've got, 83 million there and it's invested, I would like to be really clear. That's not money that we're not saving and we're not spending the money. That is money that is earmarked for projects which haven't started. So we've had instances council has had in the past where that has been misconstrued. So I think that's an important.
Most of that money is effectively flood money.
Yeah.
Money that we have been entrusted by state and federal governments to repair the damage from the flood, and it will go out the door at some point.
Yeah.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. Is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Spurden. Councillor Stewart, speak.
Mr Mayor, it's always good to see our money is earning interest, and as just been mentioned, most of it is constrained for particular capital purposes. So I'm happy to move this report.
Councillor Spurden.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's good to see that we have one income stream that is going well, and I'm happy to second.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? The other speakers for. Councillor Stewart, close.
I think that would add.
Now we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.4, procurement report, January 2024. And Mr. again.
Mr Mayor and councillors, this is our regular monthly procurement report. There are 3 items for your consideration. The first of which is a contract that's been put out to market and evaluated in relation to production of quarry product at Mount Olive. There were 3 conforming tenders after an extensive evaluation process. The evaluation panel has recommended that the tender be received from Quarry Boys Gympie Proprietary Limited, and that one's detailed in the recommendation. The second recommendation, the second matter, is in relation to a qualified register for dry hire plant and equipment. This one is due to expire, and due to time constraints, staffing constraints, resourcing, and the amount of work that the stakeholders for this panel are involved in at the moment, they're requesting a 2-month extension. They'd like to extend the current contract through to the 30th of April, which will give them sufficient time to make their assessment and evaluation of the invitees for that pre-qualified register. The third matter is similar to that second one, where the panel are involved, the stakeholders involved are asking for a 3-month extension for the pre-qualified register for tree and arboriculture services through to the 30th of April. And it's basically the same justification as the previous recommendation.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Devereux.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, budget implications. How solid, given the alterations we're already looking at, the variances, how solid is that assessment that it's consistent with the budget? Does consistent mean that we're looking at it's not going to be a problem?
The evaluation panel have taken on board all of those, I guess, the financial considerations. They believe it's consistent with the information that they have in their current budget.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? We have 3 recommendations there. Recommendation 1, someone to move. Councillor Spurden. Councillor Stewart, second. Councillor Spurden.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I believe Mount Olive Quarry is our main quarry for council. I think the material from that quarry will be going in the gate rather quickly, probably, with all the road repairs that we have to do. And it's good to see that we are going to try and keep on top of it and actually keep a good deposit of gravel there available for us for our road repairs. We should be actually travelling fairly well in that regard, as most of this is paid for by RIB grants, should we not? So I'm happy to move.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, we like to give a little bit of preference to local companies. And one of the things I really like about this is that the local company would have won the tender regardless of local preference because of their competence and competitiveness. And I guess that's always the ideal. So I'm very happy to move that we accept this tender.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? The other speakers for. Councillor Smith, close.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm happy to move things.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We'll look at recommendation 2 now in relation to pre-qualified register for dry hire plant and equipment. Is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Spurden. Councillor Stewart, speak.
Mr Mayor, it's only a 2-month extension and that'll get us past the election, so whoever is back here can have that joy of accepting the tenders. dry hire is simply hiring the equipment without the operators, so, and we soon need to do that from time to time, so happy to move.
Councillor Smith,
Happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, the other speakers for. Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 3 there in relation to the extension of the qualified register of tree and arboriculture services. Someone to move? Councillor Polly, someone to second. Councillor Smurden, Councillor Polly to speak.
I can only reiterate what councillor Stewart said to the last one. It's only a couple of months and it's business as usual. Happy to recommend.
Councillor Smurden.
Echo those sentiments and happy to second.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for. Councillor Polly to close.
Nothing further to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 6.5, thank you, Ms Heatherall. Item 6.5, Audit Risk Committee Report, December 23. Hand over to Mr Lewis and Ms Patch.
I'll hand over to Ms Patch to present this report.
Morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. The Audit and Risk Committee report has been provided by the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee. There are a number of presenters at the meeting on the 14th of December. Just like to highlight the forward rolling plan actions that were for Council's response to the Queensland Audit Office's self-assessment on the management of its assets, the controls in place to identify and collect developer contributions, update from the ICT on GIS support, which is very important for council, and workplace health and safety issues in relation to long-term lost time, which is some of the actions moving forward. Are there any questions on the report?
Questions, Councillor Stewart?
Mr Mayor, could we just have clarification on what the GIS system is?
GIS is geospatial. I actually...
It's a spatial system.
It's a mapping system.
Yeah.
I don't know what GIS stands for, but it is a mapping system.
Thank you.
And it helps with identifying flood zones, and it's also used in disaster management.
It becomes as we move to ERP with our rating and used extensively in IS for and will allow us to plot in real time some of our issues around road defects and things of that area.
So what are the issues around that mapping? Mapping is absolutely essential, I get that. So what are the issues around it?
The issues we've got are that we need to urgently upgrade. It is another one of our legacy systems that has been neglected for a long period of time. And we've had a number of workarounds where we've manipulated the system, and now we haven't got the expertise to fully understand what those changes to our GIS platforms were. So the issue is we need to update the GIS system to support the new ERP, and we have to mitigate the risk around the workarounds that we've put in place on those legacy systems.
Just for your notes, I understand it's a geographic information system.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne?
I'm just a curiosity question. You probably don't have the answer, but yeah, on that, is there? That's just one system. Is that the only system that's out there that provides that function for a council use? And that's just probably just a question I've noticed. I'm just interested in the answer. Really, then the office is answering it right here now, since we're bringing it up.
I think GIS is just it's not specific software. It's just
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd also...
Through council use Intramaps, which is a technology one solution.
Okay.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to acknowledge the work of Graham Jeffries, who's no longer working on the Audit and Risk Committee. He did much work in collating and coordinating the Audit and Risk Committee, and I just want to acknowledge his work.
Any other questions, councillors? If not, we have a recommendation there with 2 parts. We'll deal with them both together. Someone to move? Councillor Devro, Councillor Stewart second. Councillor Devro to speak.
As I've said many times, being on the Audit and Risk Committee is something I enjoy, and I wish more councillors got an opportunity to be there to hear external comments on how things are in council and what they're suggesting, and they're pointing out, and how to avoid risks. So yeah, it's an important function, and I appreciate the work they do, and I hope everyone here does. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I found it an interesting report, and there's a number of concerns that it raised, which I guess I share, and probably many of us share, especially on the operational finance side of things. So happy to know that the committee is working well, and happy to receive the report.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Now the speakers for. Councillor Milne.
No, I'd just like to highlight that it is actually a really good report. The Audit and Risk Committee are functioning as they should. They are highlighting a lot of risks that I do identify myself in the organisation, and it assures me that there are processes moving forward. You never have any operations without risk, in a sense. It's just what they are. And it's good that we have this process and this external oversight to actually move forward with that. And I would like to just give a shout out to the ICT team, because it does actually mention in there a thorough report, and I do know that team does give you a thorough report. So, yeah, thank you.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Debrett, to close.
Nothing more to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Another couple of items before we break morning tea. Item 7.1, extension of the domestic waste contract. Hand over to the Acting Director, Stengel.
Good morning, Mr Mayor. Good morning, councillors, residents. So thank you. This next item is 7.1, which is an extension to our domestic waste contract. We've taken it to a council workshop last week. We're seeking council's endorsement to support the recommendation, which will be to extend the contract under the provisions of 235B of the local government regulation. We've actually done this obviously because we have had a few delays in actually releasing our new tender. So I guess as a consequence we wanted council support in this matter so that we can actually release that tender in due course and have a well considered product for the next incoming domestic waste contract. I hope that will be, we get a really good product that council is satisfied with. So are there any questions on that particular report?
Questions, councillors? I have one, Stengel, in relation to the June 25. Is that in line with other councils' contracts ending, and does that extension give us other opportunities?
So through the chair, it will unfortunately not quite align with any of the other surrounding contracts. However, we will absolutely put the extensions to contract in the next contract in a flexible way so that we can align with any other adjoining contracts. So after this next contract.
So there is a desire, what you're saying, if I understand this correctly, there is a desire to look to partner and work with other local governments that are our neighbours, with the view that if it's a bigger contract between two councils, we would hopefully get a better price and a better outcome for our ratepayers.
So absolutely there are opportunities and the staff are looking to do that. There will be some, I guess, alignment isn't always a simple yes or no and for savings, but absolutely seeking to align contracts to a certain point, there are opportunities, and that's the intention of those extensions.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there in two parts. Is there someone to move? Councillor Milne, someone to second. Councillor Stewart, Councillor Milne to speak.
Waste is a big service that council does provide, and we do have to require to have a contract to do that. We can't do that one at this stage by ourselves. We do need these guys, and I do believe that we do need to have a tender go out that is holistic and inclusive and has full data and is getting the best outcome possible for the future of our residents and ratepayers, because this is a big cost on a household. So I'm very supportive of extending this to this timeframe to allow that to happen.
Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, given all the work the team have had to do in terms of extending lives of waste management facilities and things like that, I'm not surprised that haven't been able to get all the tender documents ready in time, so happy to extend it and make sure that things are done properly so that we get the best deal.
Two speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for? Sorry to speak in favour of the recommendation and acknowledge the work that the team have done in the waste space over the last 3.5 years. It's a credit to their commitment right to the staff at the front, the tip face, who identified that we weren't utilising our airspace to benefit the region, and who have been through the process of getting the Eastern Cell approved, to save ratepayers millions of dollars in transportation to other areas, and also have a long-term view around dealing with waste that's to our benefit. So I have complete confidence that this extension will be handled in the same manner that has been all those other matters have been done in the past, and I've asked councillors to support the recommendation because our staff do a wonderful job in this space and have saved us millions of dollars over the last couple of years. Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Milne to close.
Nothing further to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 7.3, development application, material change of use. 7.2, sorry. Get it itself. I will hand over to Ms Stenholm. Ms Stenholm again, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Look, thank you. As the Mayor just appropriately announced, this is a development application, material change of use. It's not often that we get these types of applications before council. This particular matter obviously has some contentions around it. From a processual point of view, as council officers, we've recommended to obviously refuse the application, which is why it's before council for your consideration today. Stand on for you.
Thanks, Alex. Mr Mayor, councillors, I don't know if we need to go through the details. We did do it at a workshop fairly recently. We're bringing it to you obviously because at a staff level we can't support this. It's in the rural zone, proposing industrial use that started off as a home-based business historically, has expanded during COVID and with the housing crisis to a much more intense use than it was then. So, yeah, if you've got any questions, otherwise it's over to you.
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
Sorry, I wasn't at that workshop, I know that. But, that's all right, I get the idea. And without sounding like I'm endorsing anything, I understand that fledgling businesses need to start from home sometimes and build their way up and they get to a certain size, which I think is the issue here is quite big. But if we accept the motion and reject it, he will be shut down completely or made to just pull his head in and curtail back to a smaller scale. What's the outcome of that?
Well, through you, Mr Mayor, it's obviously a decision for the compliance team. Normally they would give people some time to find another suitable location. We wouldn't just go in and require them to cease immediately. These people have been waiting for a decision, so yeah, we would be fair in that.
Right, so there's no chance for him just to carry on at the lower scale that he has been for the previous years without... Because is this application to go bigger and better or not, just to get approved what he's already been doing for years?
Yeah, that's right. So this application came about as a result of compliance action.
Yeah,
He had a complaint and he made a development application to legitimise effectively what he's been doing for a number of years.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne?
Just on some of the points that are written for the reasoning, and they do include a lack from the applicant to demonstrate or provide information. If there is a refusal, is there future scope to reapply and identify, fulfil those requirements, potentially being reassessed?
Yes, Mayor, that's correct, Councillor. So if the decision is to refuse, the applicant does have the opportunity to come back and reapply and try and address those things. Alternatively, if councillors are of a mind to support it, you could ask them to provide some more information, make it more acceptable. I guess given the standing zoning issue, I didn't feel it was fair to the applicant to go and push them to spend that extra money if we're going to end up at the same point.
Any other questions, councillors?
I'm sorry, it's probably in here, I may have missed it. What was the original complaint about, please?
The complaint was from a nearby resident. The complaint was that they had cleared a fair bit of vegetation to put the shipping containers on the site, and the shipping containers were unsightly from their home. There was also, I believe, a stormwater issue. They've done some reprofiling of the land to get a level area, which had diverted some stormwater onto the nearby property as well.
And were those, in your opinion, upheld?
The person that complained did put a submission in, and we summarised those issues there.
Thank you.
They,
Sorry. Thank you.
They've said that they don't support the proposal, but if it is going to be approved, they'd like some of those things addressed, the stormwater fixed up. They'd like a visual screen of some sort. And obviously the hours restricted so that there's no nighttime operation.
Sorry, I suppose that the one that caught my attention there is the runoff.
The runoff?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the runoff can be addressed, yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Smith.
Clearing of trees is mentioned in the report. Was there much clearing, or just I thought that going by the photos, a lot of the containers were situated in amongst the trees and not actually cleared to accommodate the containers?
Mr Mayor, obviously was a compliance matter, but my understanding is that there was some clearing done, sufficient such that the area where the shipping containers are is quite exposed now to the neighbouring property.
And the actual block does border onto the old Bruce Highway?
That's right.
There was no objection from TMO?
There's no access to it, sorry.
No direct access.
If I can just ask a question, Stenholm. The individual that made the complaint was, if approved, they could accept the approval, but they wanted some conditions around dealing with, the amenity and the stormwater. Is that a correct understanding?
I haven't spoken to them directly, Mr Mayor, but their submissions was quite clear that they don't support what's going on there, but if it is going to be approved, they definitely want those things addressed. I'm not sure that the words they used was they could do it.
Well, yeah.
I mean, they will get appeal rights to any decision anyway, as a submitter.
Yeah. Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Mellon?
Oh, no, go.
I was just going to say, if we, because I had his question too, so that's fine. If we approved it and that brings in a whole bunch of infrastructure charges and stuff, then there's more issues down the track that the applicant has to pay all these things and do the right thing. Otherwise, it will be knocked on the head again or be another compliance matter.
Councillor Polly, I assume your question's about if you wanted to approve it today, what would be the next steps?
Well, just if we approve it, then, he's going to have infrastructure charges and he's got to do all this stuff to comply, let's say, and then he doesn't for whatever reason, just thinks he's got a hall pass now, but it'll just go back to a compliance issue.
It would be a compliance issue, yes. So today, council could direct staff to, or could approve the development subject to conditions to be prepared and issued by staff, which would then include the assured infrastructure charges notice.
And those conditions could deal with amenity, runoff and those sorts of things.
Yeah, and the applicant can then obviously come back and negotiate those conditions if they're not happening.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne?
Just on reflection on council approving these type of developments that wouldn't be in the planning scheme, and then my question is more the risk of potentially there being an application to a higher authority, because we have approved something that does go against the SLIM or a recommendation of council. I'm just trying to understand in risk if that is being proposed potentially, because as it sits a refusal. And,
Any MCU that is approved has the opportunity to go to a high court. That risk is always there. Any other questions, councillors? Okay, we have a recommendation there before us. Is there someone to move? If there is no mover, then the recommendation lapses. If there is no alternative recommendation, we will move on to the agenda item, which makes it impossible for staff to move forward.
Can I just,
So we go back to the principle that we had in December where
yeah.
the recommendation, if it's not endorsed by council, doesn't allow the organisation to move forward. So perhaps in these circumstances, there may be an opportunity for staff to have an alternate recommendation that we haven't even got a mover on this and there's no other option. So you go away and then you bring another report back the same next month and it's still not moved by council. So if there is a councillor that wishes to move an alternative motion like we did in December, we can do that. Otherwise, we move on to the next item. Councillor Miller?
Can I just have a question? I mean, the refusal was brought to us, but ordinarily that doesn't have to come to us to have a refusal. No.
But it's come now, and if staff were to issue that refusal, given that it wasn't endorsed by council, that would be an interesting step to take as well. That would be a clear move away from council's desires. So if there is no one to move an alternative recommendation, we'll move on to the next item. Thank you, Ms. Stenhouse. Item 7.3, planning scheme policy position. Head over to Ms. Stengel and Ms. Stenholm again.
Thank you, councillors. Item 7.3 is the planning scheme. This is, I guess, covering off on a brief of work that's been completed by the strategic planning team regarding the following papers: coastal hazards, heritage, highway realignment, housing, industrial, retail, commercial. So, I guess today was basically this report's asking that this is a formal endorsement of those papers. Do councillors have any questions?
Any questions, councillors? I know we've had a few discussions around these points over the last couple of weeks, which has been good. If there's no questions, you're sitting on the fence there, Councillor Denver. I can reach your quota for today.
Yeah, I think I've hit it. I do have some question. I'm just not sure how much I can go into it. So, there was something came up at the last meeting about an area which is being earmarked for a future town plan for residential expansion, which it was mentioned, but a couple of councillors thought made a lot more sense. Reasons being its location and just, I mean, you can look at the fact that where we've got a lot of expansion at the moment, you've got to go over two bridges that periodically aren't usable.
Just to help you out, Councillor Devereux, I know you're trying to walk
Thank
through
you.
Is there any consideration for that discussion that we've had around future residential growth in this town plan or in the thinking of our staff so that we can assist with aligning the state so that they can support that possible endeavour?
Through Mr Mayor, we have added to, it's in the housing paper, we have added to the actions statement that council staff identify potential locations and means of conserving land, long-term housing supply to meet the region's needs beyond 2046. So councillors were briefed about some possibilities on that. We've not put the detail of that in what's going to be a public document.
Yeah.
We don't want to engender a whole lot of speculation, but we have flagged as part of our process a discussion with the state about where to next. So that's part of the actions in the plan.
When you say next, do you mean within
next doesn't need to be after 2046.
Yes, it can be sooner. Yes. I just think the more flexibility we have in terms of this, our city, it's a benefit to the town. Otherwise, a couple of developers can hold things up if they want, and I don't think that's a good idea. I have another question, if I may. Reading the Wide-Bay Burnett regional plan, I have concerns it doesn't match up particularly well in certain places with these documents.
Okay, through you, Mr Mayor. We have had some discussions with the department in the last week about the differences between the draft Wide Bay Regional Plan, which informed our, and vice versa, our policy position paper, and what the Minister actually signed off on in, I think, 15th of December.
Without chance.
So there was differences there, particularly with respect to industrial land. So we had a meeting with the department last week about that. We did flag with them before Christmas, but with all the stuff that goes on, we didn't get to that meeting last week. The proposal at this stage is that pending council decision today on the industrial land paper, a recommendation will be considered by the department for the Minister, or to put to the Minister, suggesting a minor amendment to reflect council's industrial position paper, which is Curra's back in and the reinstatement of Kaibong and Talara come out. And it's consistent with what we've said and with council's position.
Yeah, it was odd that it got changed when we didn't request it.
We were a bit confused as well, yes.
I believe there may have been an error made at some point.
Hard to believe. In terms of again, the same sort of thing, priority living, I did send an email in where it just seemed a little bit at odds, and especially there was an article recently about us becoming a dormitory city for other areas.
So just again, through Mr Mayor, the priority living area discussion, again, if we look at what was discussed in the draft regional plan, it showed in particular three priority living areas of interest to this council: Gonalda, Kilkeven and Tin Bay, amongst others. In the one that was signed off by the Minister, there's still, the maps are there, but there's no defined priority living area. Priority living areas is a device that essentially protects those areas from mining. What it does, it's more to do with the Planning and Resources Act rather than the Planning Act, but it protects those areas from mining. So we have raised that with the department again. Their focus and the priority for us, we agree, is sort out the industrial stuff, and then we'll sort out the priority.
Kandanga was one of the places that was missing.
There was a number of areas throughout the region that weren't in the draft plan. We made submissions asking to be included in the plan. They haven't included those ones.
I noticed they changed some other regions.
There is some unusual mapping outcomes, which we have not really got an explanation from the department about, but we'll keep chasing them. I think if council were to sign off the industrial paper today, that gives them a clear view as to what this council's intentions are, and then I can go back and say, look, this is what council wants. Okay.
And we're going to have a briefing on the regional plan next month.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'm just not sure how they could be confused, because we've done the reports in 2020. We have been heading down a particular drive, and one of the big issues with Kaibong was access during floods, and the fact that both the southern end and the northern end make it impossible to get there unless you're in a boat during floods. So, we've been very clear as an organisation, as elected representatives, on the practicalities of what we wanted to achieve. I'm not sure, I haven't had an explanation other than sort of a suggestion that there may have been some mistakes made to the reason for the backflip. So it would be good to get that outlined out as soon as we can. So, any other questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
I don't want to extend this too long, but the history of Gympie's been incremental growth. Somebody chops off a block of land, and it's grown to the point where a developer comes in, develops roads for 1,000 acres and 100 homes, and unfortunately whoever gets there first then deals with 2 years of noise around them as the rest of the thing. But I seem to like the idea of like Aura and Springfield Lakes, where the developer moves in, they build the shops, the school, the hospital, 500 houses, they move out, people move in en masse, bang, there it is. But anyhow, so whether that's right or wrong, but does this town plan allow for that scale of development where they can go in and there it is, or It's got to be very slow and incremental.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Having had experience in major release areas, I wish they were that simple. They're not, but there is the opportunity where you have large release areas and large individual developers to do master plan communities.
Yep.
There are pros and cons in that, but essentially it is easier to coordinate, no doubt about it. That's not really the space Gympie plays in terms of urban development. We, as you say, are fairly incremental typically, with a less lots being produced each year, and we tend to have smaller developments. So we need to be sort of reasonably flexible in the way we do our infrastructure to be able to respond to where things are happening. We do have some capacity via our LGIP and the plant, the priority area to steer development, but it's limited. So we do need to be able to be flexible about things happening incrementally.
Yeah.
The scheme will do that.
Yeah, as long as it allows.
But it won't prohibit someone coming in and saying, I want to do a master plan. It won't, because that is easier for us.
Yeah, cool, that's fine.
I'd be happy for Aura to stay very much. Having driven through there, I think the only space available for people on the roads is those using mobility scooters. It's just a nightmare.
Population of Aura is about the same as the population of the whole Gympie region. We're not going to have Gympie region double in size in 10 years. It's a whole different way and scale.
Are there any other questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart?
I did have some, I guess, suggestions about that highway alignment. One, about two areas. One is the Gympie interchange and adding effects on the eastern side of the interchange, because you're only looking at the effects on the western side of the interchange. And the other one was to do with whether we can negotiate with TMR about land along the old highway near Albert Park. And I'm just wondering whether it's possible to include that or whether that's just...
Through Mr Mayor. So, Councillor Stewart, we have actually drafted up a version that catches your suggestions. I've sent that to Sasha. So if Council wants to move that amended version, we can do that, but someone will have to move it from the floor. You're looking at that. Can we get that on the... So I sent it to Sasha last week. Can we get it on the screen? You can see the amendments that Councillor Stewart was suggesting.
Yeah, just a question, Mr Mayor. Is those amendments...
They highlighted it.
Through the paper, or is it amending policy or actions?
No, it's amendment in the paper. So
but it's not amending policy or actions.
It does add some actions.
Okay.
So here we've actually, there's some commentary there about the change in focus for heavy vehicles from Catharaba, Brisbane and the Crescent into Gympie Connection Road and the intersection of Gympie Connection Road and Tin Can Bay Road. So we've flagged there may be some need to look at that intersection. That's an additional comment that was in the original paper. So we've added that in. Moving on, there's a couple more. So then in the desired outcomes, just flagging that we want to see that intersection function adequately in the future because of the change in traffic character. And then the policy position basically just again refers to that Tin Can Bay Road connection in addition to our other concerns about the connection we had down Shannon Street to the highway. And then there was some conversation there in the actions about liaising with the Minister of Transport on the Bath Terrace, Stewart Terrace, Horseshoe Bend route. We've added the Tin Can Bay Road conversation to that conversation with the Minister. That deals with that issue of that easterly movement based on the email you circulated, I think, before Christmas. Might have been after Christmas, I can't remember.
This one I said that a week ago. Whatever.
It was that one. And then moving on, if you want, Christine, we go down to issue 4, where we've added a conversation about the land between, on the old highway, or the current highway, between Rose Street and Albert Park. So it's that current strip of DTMR owned land, which is not doing much at the moment. I think they pay us to mow it. I don't think we're doing much else with it. So the conversation there is that we talk to the Minister about getting that land transferred to Council for additional parking, beautification, landscaping works along there to improve the pedestrian environment between, if you like, Rose Street there, the netball area, and Albert Park. And then if we roll on down a bit, there's some subsequent words to the same effect. So they were the changes suggested by Councillor Stewart to the highway bypass paper. So there's a version.
That's resubmitted as attached now.
Well, it's not actually attached.
No, but
if council wants to move that version instead of the one that's attached, that's an option to council, I suppose.
Councillors comfortable we could make an alteration to the recommendations there to include the alterations?
Highway realignment as presented.
Councillors happy with that? Yep. You're happy with that, Councillor Stewart, giving you the...
Yeah, it's fine. That's what I wrote.
Didn't think you'd be upset.
I'm going to have to delete this one and add it.
Or just, all right.
Realignment.
By discussion.
As presented.
As updated.
Yes.
That's not an amendment, that's just your new recommendation, is it?
Undo. You'll have to go back, put it back in, and then in brackets put as amended through discussions at the meeting. Sorry, in brackets after highway realignment. As amended through discussions and
presented to.
Councillor Murphy, if we just let staff deal with this, that would be helpful. I think they're quite competent.
At the meeting.
Presented. Oh, it's a technicality.
Councillor Mill, please just let the staff deal with this. If you're not, then that's still, just let staff deal with this. Please don't interrupt all the time. We're trying to move on. We've got a number of agenda items, and I believe most of us have a full bladder that we want to get rid of. Yeah, you're happy with that, Councillor Stewart?
Yeah.
Yep. Other councillors are happy with the change?
Let's find out.
Right. With that, we have a recommendation there. There's no further questions. There's someone to move. Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Devereux. Councillor Stewart to speak.
This policy has been a long time coming, which is a good thing because it's involved a fair bit of public consultation over time, and I think that they will set good guidelines for the planning scheme that is being drafted. That's it.
Councillor Devereux.
I do wish that we had been able to get everything done this term. I know it was pushing uphill and we haven't managed it. So for me, the most important thing going forward now is to absolutely make sure that everything is, all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed rather than the other way around. So, best of luck next term getting this done.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Mill.
Mr Mayor, I do appreciate the staff efforts that have gone into creating these policy position papers. They are a very important step into moving to getting our draft ready for state interest checked in this new planning scheme. So this is actually kind of a milestone moment for these position papers, and look forward to seeing what the guys come out with it.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing further to add, thanks.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carry. We might adjourn for 15 or 20 minutes to deal with Nathan's call and resume the final items after. Get there. Ms Bailey? We are back live? Yeah, great, thank you. We'll continue with our next item on the agenda. Our water meter policy, I believe, item 8.1. With Mr O'Byrne, Mr Parker?
Yeah.
Thank you. Toy is making a statement, Mr O'Byrne.
Yes, Mr Mayor, against the trademark statement for mental health.
You're sending my mind crazy.
It's the talking point. Thanks for yours. Thanks, Mayor. Through yourself. Councillors, this paper with regards to the water meter policy, the submarine in particular, is a follow-up from the recent workshop we had with regards to the introduction of a clarification of some of the procedures we currently adopt operationally. I'll take the report as being read, but I'll also ask Mr Parker to just quickly summarise the context of this particular report.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. As you recall, this resolution is seeking council endorsement of the policy in and around sub-meter applications and installations of water meters. The Queensland Plumbing Wastewater Code requires individual premises, or residential premises where they involve one or more dwellings, duplexes or multi-unit premises, to have water meters that individually measure the water for each of those solar occupancy units. The installation or the location of those meters, I guess, is at the discretion of council. This policy and the guideline provide some consistency in and around where those meters need to be installed, whether it's a council meter on the road reserve, or whether it's a sub-meter that potentially could be inside the property, bearing in mind that responsibility for maintenance, ongoing maintenance and replacement of any water meters, whether they be a master meter or sub-meter, ultimately end up as the responsibility of council. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions, councillors? I know we had a good discussion at the workshop about this. We have two recommendations there. We'll deal with them separately. Recommendation one, is there someone to move? Councillor Stewart, someone to second. Councillor Smurden. Councillor Stewart, speak.
Well, we need guidelines where water meters go, and they're certainly very helpful in managing the use of water and the charging of water, so have them.
Councillor Smurden.
Mr Mayor, I think this makes it more fair on all users of water, and happy to second.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Stewart to close.
Nothing for that.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2 in relation to the water meter policy. Is there someone to move? Councillor Polly, someone to second. Councillor Milne, Councillor Polly to speak.
First of all, you have guidelines, then you have policies. So it's a natural consequence to make it happen. So happy to endorse the policy.
Councillor Milne.
Yeah, the policy sets us standardised set of guide, or where our stance as an organisation, which does align with what we're legislatively supposed to do anyway. So I'm happy to.
Two speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Polly to close.
Got nothing further to add.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, gentlemen. We have item 8.2, the new lease to Telstra Corporation. Thank you, Mr O'Byrne.
Is Cummins still Cummins in the formula, do you know?
Coverage is down. She's not on
No, it's back up. It's back up.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Through yourself, this is a fairly straightforward request from council to endorse the lease of a portion of land for Telstra. Basically, it's the enhancement of connectivity in the area, part of Telstra's Black Spot program. It's to lease a portion of land to erect a tower, and obviously to the betterment of I'll take the rest of the report as being
Any questions, councillors? Councillor Polly?
But this is a new lease?
Yes.
Doesn't right? rightio. So I'm just trying to understand the difference between this and, you know, we did some things at Mother Mountain and we're charging the people with the tower there a lot of rates. This seems to not, I can't remember this is lining up. You know, they had other infrastructure where we're charging them rates to have a communications tower there. And it was a lot more than this.
I would need some further information.
Yeah,
from
not
the council.
Yeah, that's right. I was just wondering, it sort of just didn't seem to line up in my head as the couple of grand we're charging them every year in rent. But I think they actually own that land and we were rating that property.
Well, then that's different.
This is different, this, yeah.
Can you add some information, Councillor Deborah? You've got another question?
Yeah. No, just, I mean, the $2,000 seemed fairly cheap.
I was going to say, I think the dot's in the wrong spot.
I don't know, but is it based on a metric of some sort, once again, that says this is worth this much, or we took a stab in the dark just to go, that's a reasonable amount?
Do we have any consistency, or is this the first of this type of lease, Mr O'Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I can't actually answer the specific details around whether it's the first one or not, but so I'll take that on notice and get back to you, Councillor. But what I can say is that the actual, the amount as far as the lease charge, etc. is concerned is consistent with how we approach these types of leases. So I can say that, but if I can get back to you with regards to other types of leases and where they are in this context.
Councillor Deborah.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, there will still be camping there. This isn't going to block everything out. Yeah, good. Thank you.
Probably been approved.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'd be right next to it.
Massive problem down at Rainbow Beach. Councillor Stewart.
Yeah, just in terms of the cost, Mr Mayor, I do note the lease is only 12 metres by 8 metres, so it's probably not even as big as this room. It's not like we're leasing huge amounts of land. So that might explain why it's $2,000 a year.
Yeah, but it's shaded really big, even though it says it. That was.
If there's no other questions, councillors, we have recommendation 1 there in relation to chapter 6. Councillor Milne, Councillor Smerd the second, Councillor Milne to speak.
We need to move this recommendation to proceed to the second recommendation, so happy to have it go through.
Councillor Smerd.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for? Councillor Fredman.
As a resident of Dorrigo camping area from time to time, this is essential from a safety perspective. In the past, to get reception down there, you've got to walk down the beach where you're just as likely to get run over by a car. So it'll be a major improvement to that whole Inskip camping area, that you can sit in your chair beside the campfire and send and receive phone calls without endangering yourself by staggering down to the beach.
Staggering?
You're staggering due to your age, Mr Fredman?
That's the same question, actually.
Medication.
Any other speakers for or against? Councillor Milne to close.
Happy to, nothing further to add.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Recommendation 2 in relation to the terms of the lease. Councillor Milne again, Councillor Smerd the second, Councillor Milne to speak.
I believe Councillor Fredman has jumped the gun, and I do, yes, on this actual paternity lease, on the benefits to it, but I do holistically support this program from Telstra to fulfil a black spot that there is in Rainbow Beach on the Inskip Peninsula campus down there. I'm not quite sure if it will fix the in-town problems that have been recently experienced, but this program in itself I do believe is a benefit, and I hope that the conditions that this lease is to, which is other consents by the landholders, and are approved as well, and we can actually have this infrastructure installed. That would be good. Thank you.
Councillor Smerd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Anything that saves staggering by Councillor Fredman is much appreciated, I would assume. Yeah, it is going to fill a void that's been missing. Actually, the whole of Rainbow Beach has been having trouble with Telstra just lately, so hopefully this plus a repair of the work that's there now will be good for the area.
Speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for? Councillor Milne to close.
Yeah, just reiterating that it is good for our influx of tourists that do go down there. It's quite a number of people, so it will benefit quite a number of people. And yeah, I believe the Telstra problem currently was that Rainbow's been resolved. So yeah, should be good.
With that, we'll go to vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.3, Mr O'Byrne, the Infrastructure Services Director report.
Thanks.
I'm sure that'll be as exciting as your tie.
I can guarantee to keep them awake. Hopefully not at night. Thanks. I'll ask Mr Balfour to join me. Councillors, I'll take the report largely as being read. There are a couple of things that I'd like to highlight, but I'll pass over to Mr Balfour in the first instance. Mr Balfour actually was acting in my role last month, so an opportunity for him to actually relay to council the activities that have happened, especially in the last month or so. And then I'll take it from here. So, yeah.
Thanks, Mr O'Byrne. Through yourself, Mr Mayor. So a couple of key highlights through the Infrastructure Services report for Q2 that I'll draw your attention to. There's been extensive work ongoing in the development review and stakeholder engagement phase of the asset management plans, also the project management framework, and in particular with the asset management plans, the road maintenance aspect of that. And we're coming to the tail end of an extensive sort of workload on implementing that, which I'll go into more detail on. There's also been significant work effort in the voluntary buyback area, in the facilities open space area. And a couple of items that aren't really summarised in this report, but I thought I'd highlight to the councillors is some out of the ordinary events that occurred on the tail end of Q2, where you would have seen from an operational perspective, we were scaling back sort of capital delivery and our business as usual maintenance in the lead up to the Christmas leave period. And then over that Christmas leave period, we also experienced some severe weather events and subsequent impacts of that, where council provided extensive support to QPS down at Rainbow Beach. But as importantly, we're the frontline officers in that space when it comes to opening roads, closing roads, clearing trees and debris, and getting out there and making those infrastructure assets safe again. So, yeah. I'll move on and provide a bit of a summary around the road maintenance area. And as Mr O'Byrne said, take it the report's been mostly read, but some key items there that I wanted to highlight was the fact that the road maintenance team throughout Q2, we've been finalising the delivery of the QRA-funded REPA Priority Package 01. Now, what that's allowed us to do is to focus more on the delivery of BAU maintenance activities in the road space. So you'll start seeing increase in works in that area. But we've also, from a more strategic perspective, and as I mentioned earlier, the road asset maintenance plan, we're in the final stages of implementing Reflect, which is a maintenance management software package, and also doing a full round of road network inspection with utilisation of with a newly acquired RACUS device, which is, it essentially measures the roughness of our road network and provides photographic evidence back to a database so we can review that. Now, the impact of that to our operational delivery, or the benefits of that, is it's driving the development of a both short and long-term maintenance program, but also helping us better manage the resources and budget we've got to identify any efficiencies and then also recognise those efficiencies as well. Another area that helps us improve, which is a pretty important one, which is enhancing the customer experience with council. So by developing those programs, we're able to get back to customers much quicker than what we've seen in the past, but also decreasing our response time. We're getting the road maintenance crews there quicker as well. So we've seen, and there's some CRM data in the back of this report to validate that. That's all.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Baffert. If I can just also highlight a couple of other key items. And first of all, just elaborate a bit on what Mr. Balfour was mentioning in regards to the extraordinary events we had just during the Christmas New Year period. You know, some of the out of hours works and the efforts that the guys went to make areas safe, as well as actually reinstate access on roads, but also in the water and wastewater area as well. Some of our teams were, working in torrential rain, early hours of the morning, incredible efforts by these teams. So I'd like to acknowledge the effort that they actually did and what they do go through when we do have these extraordinary weather events to maintain the services to the community in general. A couple of the key highlights, councillors, from an overall capital delivery point of view and how we're managing our capital program, the project management framework that we're introducing, we're having regular reference group meetings right through our council, and that's actually being progressively rolled out. We're at the stage now where we're just about to essentially go live with the first couple of phases with that, and that's a great initiative that the team have actually put forward, and I think that will very much enhance the way we manage our capital program. The actual capital program in a total sense, adding to what Mr. Lewis mentioned in the finance report, we're delivering a capital program in the order of $160 million. We're actually ahead of the forecast where we expected to be this time of the year. So that's a great recognition of the effort from all involved in delivering that capital works. 160 mil, 4 times the actual capital program that we actually delivered last year from a council perspective. We've now delivered in excess of what we delivered last year for the whole of the financial year. So that's the sort of capital program we're actually undertaking for this current year. So that's a credit, as I said, a credit to all involved. From an asset management plan point of view, I just wanted to mention as well what we're doing with regards to the asset management plans and the finalisation of those, asset class by asset class. We've got a schedule in the report which actually indicates the program we're actually working to roll those plans out. What we are doing in the next month is we're actually taking a deep breath and we're focusing, rather than actually progressing the detail of those plans and actually aiming to finish them, say, by end of calendar year this year, we're actually taking a deep breath and actually focusing on gathering the data and actually consolidating the information to feed into the budget process. So using what we've done to date to enhance our budget accuracy that we're actually then going to be forecasting for the 24-25 year. So it's going to be putting us in a lot better position than we were this time last year from a budgeting perspective. So that's from the asset management point of view. Flood recovery. The flood recovery program is around about 9 months ahead of schedule. That's where we're at, and that's a great effort from our consultants, AECOM as well, who have been the main contributors to actually that acceleration of the program. We're at a stage now where we are about to issue the contracts for the last 2 major packages. Those contracts have been endorsed, but we're actually now just executing and negotiating the final terms of those contracts. That will mean that by the end of January, we'll actually have every single program up and running from a flood recovery point of view. So again, from a community point of view, that's a great message that council is actually well on track to actually achieve and advance the program works for that for those road recovery aspects. In the property and open space area, it was mentioned by Mr. Balfour, the voluntary home buyback scheme. Right at the moment, we've had 28 properties have now been settled. We've had 7 houses that have been removed. And we've got a further 3 properties that are expected to settle within the next month or two. So that's a significant advancement of that whole program, which is the state initiative. What I will mention with regards to that is that we've had a number of questions, especially from the community, as whether they can actually purchase their homes back. Unfortunately, what we've got with these properties, they're a result of the floods. They've been flood affected. So what we've found through the demolition of the properties we've already demolished, we've discovered mould in the walls, we've discovered other inherent issues through those flood activities. So that's one of the reasons why we really can't, in a default position, be permitting these people to actually repurchase the houses that have actually gone through the voluntary home buyback scheme.
Do you mean, sorry, repurchase as in to move elsewhere?
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Correct.
Thank you.
The most significant initiative that we're kicking off and about to progress is the building condition assessments from a property point of view. We're about to engage a consultant to actually then progress that work. That will then again feed into the 24-25 budget and put us in a position where we'll have a lot more accurate projection as to what we need to spend on our assets, our property assets, our building assets, both from an overall maintenance point of view, so it will inform our operational budget from a 24-25 perspective, as well as what we need to do in relation to any capital expenditure, so any major investment that we actually need to inject into these properties to actually bring them up to a particular standard. It will also lead to the potential coming back to council with options as far as the assets themselves. Do we keep them? Do we not? What's the cost of actually continuing to maintain them? What service do they provide for the community? So that'll be a further workshop we bring back to council in that space. The last thing I mentioned, just in relation to the water side of the business, there's a number of key activities and initiatives that we're progressing in the water space. One is the finalisation of the water security strategy. That's due to be finalised within the next couple of months. Again, that will actually enable us to actually, in a more accurate sense, feed into the 24-25 budget. And that will set us up for the next 30 years from a water security point of view. We're engaged consulting engineers to actually have a look at our critical spares, which is one of the main challenges that we've actually had, especially when we've come to managing major flood events and storm events, where we actually find there's been damage and we haven't got spares in place. So we're actually re-evaluating what are our critical spares, what's the criticality, and actually then investing to make sure that we can actually maintain that continuity of service for the community. The final thing I'll mention is that we are about to complete the pressure enhancements for the Watson Road, Lindsay Street area. That will actually then remedy the situation that we actually had occur at the end of last calendar year, where we actually discovered that there were challenges as far as providing water at a suitable pressure to a number of residents in that area. So that is due to be completed next week. So that's, again, a great news story from a community service point of view. Councillors, that's it from myself, from a summary point of view. Mr Mayor,
any questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, I did have a question around the voluntary flood buyback scheme, and I've actually had some really good response from constituents about the way that people worked with them, about neighbours and whatever. But I guess it's what's the process of us taking over maintenance on those properties or adjacent to those properties. I'm particularly thinking of this property is on Crescent Road, which of course is a tourist route for people going to Tin Can Bay, and grass has been overgrown on the path, not unusual given the weather, but I'm just wondering, are we taking over maintenance, especially in important locations like that, on a through tourist route?
Councillor, through yourself, Mr Mayor, what we will bring back to council is, Initially, yes. The short answer is that as the scheme is actually rolled out, those properties, we actually own those properties, and we own, and therefore the responsibility comes back on us then to maintain them. What we need to do is, from a council perspective, is really have a serious look at, in a total strategic sense, where all these properties are. What are the options? As from a council perspective, do we retain them? Do we dispose of them? On sell them to whoever for whatever purpose? You can't build again on them. And what's the operational cost? So what is the cost to council? What are the options we've got in relation to that whole?
So that might take 6 months. In the meantime, the grass grows long. So that's what the backup cycle.
In the immediate sense, it is our responsibility. And we are under the pump in relation to general maintenance of grass. One thing I didn't mention, of course, is with the seasonal growth at the moment, it's always a challenge this time of year to keep up with growth from a grass perspective. So we are in the process of ramping up our contractors to actually...
Just on that point that Councillor Stewart's raised, I did speak to the Minister directly about who would carry the can at the end of the, on this program. I think the intent of the program was good, but I made representations that if it was the ratepayer that had to carry the burden of ongoing maintenance or development, then that was a cumbersome hindrance to the local government, and that that wouldn't be something I would be comfortable with. Obviously, the decision was made at the state level that the local government would carry the can, but I think there's an opportunity for the state to look at ways that they could assist the local government in either maintaining or repurposing those blocks of land, and maybe allocating some funding for councils that are in a circumstance where maybe the amalgamation of a couple of blocks creates an opportunity for overnight RV stays in an appropriate area or something of that nature. But simply to say, look, we've done a great job, we've bought this house, we've moved it on, no one will be impacted by a flood here again, and by the way, local government, you have to deal with that for the rest of time, is only, it's half. It's only half of the deal. So, I think, I'm sure you've probably made representations, Mr. O'Brien, and the rest of the team around the issue that creates for us from a financial perspective, particularly given, I believe, the Parks and Garden crew were out at Duck Pond 6 days apart. The grass is growing that fast that they were mowing one of our premium areas 6 days apart, which is, they're under the pump, and extra work for us and extra expenses is something we need right now. Councillor Devro, then Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor Hartwig. Again, around the same sort of thing, the voluntary buyback program. When it comes to the excess land, would it meet the criteria if a local community group or street wanted to get together and create like a community garden or something in that area? Would that be something that we're allowed to do with that particular block of land?
I think there are only restrictions, and correct me if I'm wrong, are that they can't build a residential property on there. Or maybe even commercial. Or, building is restricted, but community garden would be something that could definitely be supported.
Wonderful. Okay, so there's opportunities. Regarding the buildings themselves, we're demolishing and not selling, or we are looking at... Okay, so the fact that these places have mould, I mean, as long as that's divulged, people can make their own decisions about how much damage there is, can't they? And what they think they can fix and can't.
So, through yourself, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, you can never establish the true extent of that mould. There's been some places, some of the houses we've actually found asbestos in certain areas, but we obviously haven't tested every area because we're not looking to retain them. So the extent of that mould, the extent of the asbestos, the extent of other issues, we simply can't qualify that. And for us to actually, I suppose, go through a due process to be able to totally sign off that house that yes, it's all okay, is a substantial.
Do we have to though, if someone's prepared to wear the risk? I just think at the moment we've got issues with our dump, and putting, 35 potentially whole houses into it is not going to help. Whereas if it's a property that could be moved and they can take out what they need and make a home of it.
Sounds like purchasing a second-hand car. You take a level of risk with that there may be some mechanical issues down the track, and perhaps for some houses the option to relocate if it was suitable or there was an interest seems to be a good outcome all round. And I understand you're restricted by state requirements. Do they require that it be demolished?
Through Mr. Mayor, the intent is for it to be demolished. There hadn't been a consideration for repurchase. We actually have gone back to the state and actually asked for some qualification in that space. So that's the intent. We could push for that option, but I suppose basically assessment at this stage is potential liability and risk from a council perspective is not something we'd be prepared to accept. Understand the buyer beware approach, but at the end of the day, if we're aware that there's mould there, we're aware that also we can't establish the extent of that mould, and we disclose that to someone in an appropriate manner. What we've actually found is once we've actually had that conversation with the people that have actually asked us, they've actually immediately said, oh, okay, no worries.
But if there was someone that was willing to say, hey, I'll take that risk, I guess you haven't had word back from the state around whether or not we can on-sell the house rather than demolish. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr. Mayor. It's more the intent.
Yeah.
And at this stage, as I said, I think there's been two constituents that we've actually had those conversations with to date. And once we've explained the situation, they've accepted it. And there's been a couple of good outcomes in that scenario as well. One of them was the house was demolished, but the concrete slabs were retained, and they were actually then used. But
through yourself, Chair, can we take that question on notice? I think I can see both points of view. We need to protect ourselves, but there might be an opportunity. So if we can consider that in more detail, especially.
Can I just add one point to it, if that's okay? There are companies which have these houses like a shopping mall on the block between here and Brisbane. I mean, a company like that has these homes and then sells them from where they are. To me, that would be like a car dealership that buys second-hand cars. They're the ones that have to take the risk and everything else. So I just wonder if we've approached them and said, we've got 30 houses, do you want to take them?
Good point, Councillor. I think, as Mr. CEO has said, I think if we take that on notice and come back to a detailed clarification.
Thank you very much.
And there might be the opportunity to assist the project if we can sell those houses, and given that the state has signed them over to us, it'll assist in maintaining the properties that have been left behind. Councillor Spurd?
Also in regard to this, even if it is demolished, does it necessarily state that it has to go to the dump, or can it be used in a recycle type situation?
It's through yourself, Mr. Mayor, the terms of the contract, my understanding, the terms of the contract is it's actually up to the contractor, the person who's demolishing the house. Once they're demolishing it, they own it, they can do with what they like. So they can actually recycle, but what you tend to find is the cost of actually going there with a bulldozer and just bulldozing it and then taking it away is a lot less than trying to pick through something and recycle it and cover costs for individual components.
You haven't been to the recycle shops I have,
So what are you suggesting, that you cut a house in two and recycle those two bits together?
Some discussions I've had with Ms Cummins regarding that, I was led to believe that maybe we can look at removing those houses to another site. So that was the latest advice I heard from her yesterday, actually.
Yeah, look, and again, Councillor, I think if we take that on notice and come back to it in more detail, but I'll just re-articulate the intent of the actual scheme is for the removal of those houses.
Fair enough.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Stewart.
Mr Mayor, I guess the main concern that came from me out of this report was in terms of water and wastewater, and indicating that it's looking like there's going to be more water main and sewer breaks than is the key performance indicator limit. And I guess one of my concerns I've expressed for about 7 years in this change is that we take too much money out of water and sewer into the general business. But so what is there some sort of plan to address that, or what's you mentioned that not keeping up with maintenance, but can you expand on all that?
Through yourself, Mr Mayor. It is forecast at this stage that we are going to exceed the, I hate the word target of mains breaks, but the KPI.
The maximum.
The maximum KPI set for the mains breaks. And that's significantly due to the aging infrastructure. What we are currently doing is actually putting I mentioned about the asset management plans and where we're at with those. What we're actually doing is putting the final dots and crosses on the water and wastewater asset management plan, and that will then enable us to really have great data that we can feed into both the 24-25 financial year budget, but also future years. So the answer to your question is, we're actually now finalising a plan with some better data to be able to really forecast what the degree of the issue is from a dollar point of view, and then program and schedule the replacement of those particular assets. So we're actually on the cusp of actually finalising that plan, which will be as part of the 24-25 budget deliberations.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor
Just one small one, Mr Mayor. Just to highlight for public angst that has been over the flood recovery application getting the packages through and approved. There has been no delay on council's efforts whatsoever in actually getting that through. It's been an external process that's held that up, and then has actually flowed on to holding up our own works to do with those works around it. So I just wanted that clarified, that it's no part council staff not doing it before that's the extent.
Through yourself, Mr Mayor, you're absolutely right, Councillor. The due process in order to actually have the submissions go to the state government then to go through their evaluation, they come back to us with queries, we go back to them, clarification and the like, and then the approval of those submissions has literally taken well in excess of 12 months. And when you're talking about, approximately 10,000 different sites, each of those sites has 100 odd photos to actually verify that data, you're talking about a huge data assessment that's required. So it is a time thing, but it's by no means any, none of that delay, if you like, rests with council. As soon as council's actually had the approval of the submission, we've expedited then the tenders and the contract awards.
Any other questions, councillors? We have a recommendation there. Councillor Smurden to move. Someone to second. Councillor Mill. Councillor Smurden to speak.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to congratulate Mr O'Byrne and staff. All departments seem to be going in the right direction. It's a very hard gig, infrastructure services. You're at the mercy of the weather all the time. From floods a few years ago to drought, now back into wet weather, and with what's coming, maybe who knows what will happen. But no, it's good to see that we're going the right way and we're actually making good progress. So congratulations, and happy to make it.
Councillor Mill.
Mr Mayor, I always am happy to see the note directive updates, and it is an opportunity to reflect achievements and learnings and encourage that information share between the organisation and also back to the general public. I do want to actually reiterate and highlight what you were saying about the Christmas efforts of staff. I had on Christmas Day what appeared to be, it possibly could have been lightning damage on the foreshore, which was creating a hazard. Within 2 hours of reporting that on Christmas Day, a staff member had been attended and fixed it. And it was, I thought it was just a fantastic service. So I just like to highlight the efforts and, yeah, it was on the ground and real. The roads, I'm reading on the report, I was actually quite encouraged with the systems that you are putting through. I didn't quite understand them, so thank you very much for actually explaining that a little bit further in your presentation, because that, if we can improve that, because it, you know, there has been some recent polling that may be independent external to council, but roads is a very big public concern of we need to improve or provide a better service. So very encouraging to see that. I look forward to see what's happening. The open space, it looked like new schedules for like garden and maintenance and things like that, and it probably goes with the normal schedules and perhaps have to through that service operational plan. To look at that, and I did note that traffic on Tiwa was 40 kilometres an hour, and it's really good to have the traffic advisory, I can't remember the actual name, but actually having some of that information that's coming through that committee come this report, which is a good improvement. And the asset management explanations through this report as well really highlights some of the stuff that was brought up in the audit and risk report earlier. So it's really good to see a later report identifying where we're improving and a further extent to something else was highlighted. So very happy to receive the note. Thank you very much.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Just like to again, just reiterate the sentiments around the staff and their work over Christmas, but also in my contact with the staff from John Street IS, the thing that impresses me most is their level of care. I think it's fair to say that the organisation is moving to a point where we give them the equipment that they need, and I know you're dealing with that through the asset management and the fleet reviews. But it's also fair to say that I'm not completely sure that was done in the past. In fact, I think it was quite the opposite, where decisions were made that made life difficult for those staff, and in spite of that, they still got on and did the job. And I can say unequivocally that I've been thoroughly impressed with the level of care that these people operate with. It's not a job to them. It's something that they're passionate about. If it's as simple as filling potholes or mowing grass, it's a profession to them, and they should be congratulated. And as you know, the leaders in that area should also be congratulated for encouraging that and hopefully facilitating them with better equipment in the future. So thanks for the report. I'd urge councillors to support and vote for this recommendation. With that, will Councillor Smerdon close?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that our Mayor has had some hands-on experience in some of these departments, so done well. I agree with you. I think after the election in 2020, Structured Services had a lot of ground to make up, had been grossly neglected in those previous years, and I think we've turned it around and done pretty well for the last going on 4 years, so congratulations again, sir, and happy to move.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Belfour. Item 8.4, the construction package for land slips. I'll hand over to you, Mr. O'Byrne.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll take this report as it's being read. It is fairly straightforward. It's one of the last of the major packages. The flood recovery, as I mentioned earlier. We're talking about getting in and mending the areas that were affected through the landslips, especially Wonder Road and Bourbidgen Road. Some significant landslips, significant damage to roads, and the evaluation was done. We received 2 tenders. Evaluation was done, and the determination by the evaluation panels that endorsed by the procurement panel is that the contract be awarded to Durack Civil. Durack actually have a substantial experience in this area. They are actually the main contractor doing the majority of our works at the moment as well, so they are mobilised into the area.
Any questions, councillors? We have 2 recommendations there. Is there someone to move the first? Councillor Fredman. Councillor Smerdon the second. Councillor Fredman to speak.
The old story, Mr. Mayor, slip, slop, slap. We've got to get rid of these slips, and the faster the better.
Councillor Smerdon.
Agree totally with Councillor Fredman. I think Direct Civil will do a good job. We have got a few landslips after that rainfall back nearly 2 years ago. Is it 2 years ago now? I think it is, yeah.
Yep.
So, yeah, happy to see that we're finally progressing on these landslips.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against, any other speakers for. Councillor Fredman to close.
Nothing to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 2, in relation to the delegation to the CEO. Is there someone to move? Councillor Fredman. Councillor Smurd the second. Councillor Fredman speaks.
Just get it done, Mr Mayor. This is essential to keep the contract rolling, and sooner the better.
Councillor Smurd.
Happy to second, Mr Mayor.
2 speakers for the recommendation, any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Fredman to close.
Nothing to add.
That will go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Item 8.5, Regional Precincts and Partnership Program. For you, Mr O'Byrne.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is a federally funded grant scheme, the Regional Precincts and Partnership Program. It's a program that actually replaces the Building Better Regions Fund, which was initiated a couple of years ago now. There's 2 streams for the funding. Stream 1 is actually to provide funding to organisations to progress master planning concepts and detailed design of projects that are important to their own communities. And Stream 2 is for the actual delivery of the project. And the intent is to actually better enable organisations to get projects up to a shovel-ready aspect, so that when they apply for the Stream 2 funding, the actual design's done, they're ready to go, and there's a real commitment from the organisation that these projects are going to happen. So, councillors, it's a rolling program. There's no closure date at this stage, so I'm sure this is the first of a number of projects that will be coming to you as we put submissions forward over the next year or 2. The reason why this project come to the fore is we've currently got in our budget $200,000 to actually commence master planning and concepts for our CBD areas, and that was all about deciding strategically where as a council wanted to go in relation to development of that precinct. So it's actually taken that money as seed money, or the intent is to take that money as seed money and put forward a submission to the Stream 1 of this funding opportunity, and to actually have a look at the various precincts around the centre of Gympie, and determining in an overall master planning concept point of view how that works. It's a significant program of work we're looking to undertake. It's planned to involve the community in an extensive manner and actually engage the councillors to determine what their priority is. Once the priority is determined, then we'd be looking to go through a detailed design of that, what we'd call Stage 1. That's all in the future. What we're talking about now is putting a submission forward to the government to actually take advantage of up to $5 million. And our submission will probably be in the order of $4 million. That's the extent of concept, master planning and detailed design work we're intending to undertake. So what we're bringing to council is the proposal that we actually do take this to the government from a submission perspective and progress what we believe is a significant strategic aspect for the community.
Just got a question first, Councillor Dewar. Mr O'Byrne, we allocated as part of our budget funding $200,000 to start the process of looking at how we redevelop the CBD and surrounding areas. If I understand this correctly, you're looking to use that as seed money for the purpose of showing commitment to a grant funding opportunity that will assist council in moving that process faster and without the expense to this local government. Is that correct?
Correct, Mr Mayor. So first of all, the $200,000 will demonstrate to the assessment body that council is already committed to this. So it is something that we're looking to progress, but it will enable us to accelerate that whole process and bring it to a conclusion. The $200,000 we've currently got in our budget will enable some very broad concept work to be done and a commencement of the process with then further investment by council to complete it. This would actually provide us the funds to actually bring it to a total conclusion with nothing having to come from council's own revenue.
I think one of the frustrations that councillors have is we see a lot of these master plans done, and the ratepayers have spent a fortune over the years doing that. Again, if I understand the report correctly, you're looking to bring, if successful with the grant, you're looking to bring things to a point of detailed design so that the next step isn't about getting more money to do more pitches. It's actually about shoveling ground, actual activity to bring to life what was conceived. Is that
correct, Mr. Mayor? And I think if I can just highlight the point too, and taking on board Councillor Fredman's comments here many months ago, that how many times have we actually done master plans, concept designs, etc. And I'm aware of about 6 or 7, and hundreds of thousands of dollars have been invested in the past, and each of them have been different, and then nothing's progressed. So what this is all about is actually bringing to a conclusion, taking into account, taking what we can from the historical master plan that's already been done, so not ignoring what's been done in the past, collating all that, bring it to conclusion, detailed design, so that we then will be in a position to apply for a Stream 2 funding in order to actually construct whatever we decide is actually going to be stage 1 of this process.
Yeah, I think councillors have seen so often too much concept, too much pie in the sky, not enough detail. So it's good to hear that you want to get it to that shovel-ready point. So the next step is not more pitches, but actual construction.
And Mr. Mayor, if I can just elaborate too, this is all about setting ourselves up as well to be able to then apply for a Stream 2 grant, which is up to $50 million. At this stage, we have not got any shovel-ready projects. We've got no projects with the detailed design sitting on the table that we can actually go and apply for that Stream 2 funding. So this will then set us up to be able to apply for that funding stream.
Councillor Stewart.
Oh, were you getting it first?
I don't mind.
Okay. I know that, as you said, there's probably about half a dozen different plans for this bit or that bit of the CBD and whatever, and even the last council said, well, we need to start again, basically. So finally, it's getting to the stage of starting again to do something a bit more holistic. I guess my question is around how big in terms of area-wise. So, because I would imagine you want to start Civic Centre, this area, and go all the way through the Shannon Street, down to Nelson Reserve, including Goldfields Plaza, whatever it is, not just Mary Street, but the surrounding area as well.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, absolutely, Councillor. I think our thought at this stage is that we're considering a very broad area. The first step of the process, if we're successful with the funding, the first step of the process would be to determine exactly what areas, what are the bounds around the areas that we're wanting to consider. That would be the first step. But so right at the moment, the submission will actually highlight some very broad areas, some very broad concepts, but nothing, that will then need to be taken and then refined to determine exactly which streets, exactly which area, the engagement with both the business community as well as the residents. The civic precinct, CBD, Memorial Lane, all those aspects will have to be considered, and probably broader than that. But that'll be all in the due process of actually that exercise.
Councillor Deborah.
Thank you. Regarding the date, it does say successful projects approved under the Regional Precincts and Partnerships Program must be completed by the 31st of March 2026. So that's 2 years come March to complete the projects. That means to have them built. Is that right?
So it applies to the actual stream of funding you're successful with. So we would have to 2026 to actually complete this is only stream 1 funding, which is...
Is that just for stream 1?
So we've actually got until that time frame to complete whatever funding application we're potentially successful with. So that is just, at this stage, the detailed design.
Yeah.
The next funding application, what were the discussions we've had with the Department of Infrastructure, the federal department, is that the timelines for construction, etc., depending on what's proposed and how the whole program progresses, those timelines are most likely going to extend.
Okay.
So,
because I don't think we'd have a chance in
No.
No. We need to have detailed design by that day.
Yeah,
and then we roll on to the next one.
Just on that, with no shovel-ready projects, I'm pretty sure right at the beginning of our term, we said we need to have shovel-ready projects. So I don't understand how we can have none. Nothing's been done.
You had chaos in organisation.
Had a few floods, COVID.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I would like some assurance that we're not going to shuffle our feet on this, regardless of the dates and stuff, that it'll be a case of, crack on and get in as quick as we can. Because otherwise, the opportunity will go, and I'd hate to see that.
Could I make a general comment to the chair? Look, that's the intent. We need to get the grant, of course. I think what Mr. Roberts demonstrated is that through our project management works, we now have a framework that allows us to get things done in capital works.
Wonderful.
This would be another example of that. So let's judge us by what we've achieved so far, and hopefully we can keep doing that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Milne.
Mr. Mayor, from just quickly looking at the funding program itself, I believe that it's actually what we apply for. We don't have to actually co-contribute anything to that, so we're not really tying ourselves in. Because when I was reading it, it's like, we've got 200,000 and your seed funding, I think how much up to, and then you gave an estimated figure. Okay, that's a substantial project, and having no co-contribution obligations to that is actually a really big investment into having that strategic future. So it was quite encouraging to see the breadth of the typical you're going to be looking at. So I was just making sure we didn't have to.
Any other questions, councillors? Have a recommendation there. Councillor Devereux to move, someone to second. Councillor Stewart, Councillor Devereux to speak.
I'm really excited by what this can mean for our region, our city centre. Just in hopefully from what you've said, not just doing a master plan to get everyone excited and then not delivering, which is something we're really good at historically, but to actually go that next step and work out a way to do it is what I'm hoping we're heading towards, because I think residents deserve it. I think the ratepayers deserve it. And I know that councillors and ratepayers are a little bit overpaying for plans that don't do anything, and then having to do another one, like the wet warm water plant and the hydrotherapy. It's just stuff, it's very frustrating as a resident and as a councillor. So best of luck with it. I realise most of this will be the next term of council. Good luck, fellas, ladies. I hope something magical comes out of this, so good luck with it. Thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
If Councillor Devereux is very excited, I'm ecstatic. I know the last council we got sick of all the people complaining at the last council, but there were lots of little different master plans or plans around the place, and it was just a bit of a mix mash. And in the end, we said we need to stop and we need to get something that's unified, and this is what this is looking at. And at last, it's happening. I know the frustration that we haven't planned and designed anything for 4 years, and well, that's partly because of unfortunate circumstances the first 2 years, I think. But so I'm really happy that this is a really great opportunity. I hope we actually take the bull by the horns and get it done with something that's unified, good for the whole city centre. So I'm very happy to second this.
2 speakers for the recommendation. Any speakers against? Any other speakers for? Councillor Milne.
I would just like to echo some of the frustration about having those long-term shovel-ready and strategic planning, because that is actually our role as councillors, is that high-level strategy. And by having this opportunity, which is looking like not costing the ratepayers other than the seed funding we've already allocated to it, will actually deliver that role that we have for those strategic plans to be struggle levy, which we need to actually move forward in any concept. The bit that I found really encouraging through looking at the program was it's tailored to precinct plans that are tailored to local context, and it's based on community feedback and engagement. So it was that whole community involvement part of the program, which I found really encouraging, because it will be not just what a room thinks or a staff thinks, it actually has to have that community engagement part, so we can actually start looking at that future and building it for our people. So really encouraged to see what officers have come up with to put in an application on this. Thank you.
Any other speakers for or against? Just before we go to the vote, I'd just like to congratulate Mr. O'Byrne and the team and Mr. Jennings for obviously this is an indication of a different approach. It has been a frustration, as Councillor said, that there are no shovel-ready projects. And we came in with no shovel-ready projects. We've faced a significant number of challenges through that time. We still have achieved things and made progress, but this funding to wrap everything up in the CBD, as Councillor Stewart pointed out, in one document rather than a whole lot of pieces of the puzzle that actually don't really fit together, will be something that future councils can stage in a development and work off one blueprint, so that money that is invested by ratepayers has an ongoing benefit into the future and can be built on. So I think it's a good shift in the management, that there is a desire to listen to councillors and understand, and then apply your own experience and skills in identifying these grant opportunities and bringing it to us. So thank you, and I'd ask councillors to support this recommendation. I know it will be next term that benefits, but we're here for the future of the region, not just for ourselves. Councillor Devereux, close, sorry.
In the spirit of one-upmanship, I would like to say that I am overwhelmingly electrified by this, and yes, I encourage everyone to go for it. Thank you.
With that, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you, Mr. O'Byrne. Well, that's your last item. Before we close, councillors, our Vanilla Rights man, Mr. Councillor Fredman, would like to do a portfolio report. As portfolio councillor for the Mary Valley, is that correct?
As portfolio councillor for Division 8, the Mary Valley, I'd like to give my portfolio report, because we're in caretaker mode next week. And so I'd like to do my report today while we're still in undertaker mode. Last meeting I gave a sermon about the demise of Kalula Milk institution in the Mary Valley. It's gone. I could also report on my demise as the most popular councillor. I've been just defeated, I read in the paper though, by Councillor Devereux. I could appeal the result, but I think it's good that someone else who needs the publicity has defeated me. But this week I'm sad to report another impending demise. There will be no Councillor Fredman after 16th of March. It'll just be Bob Fredman, citizen. I'm retiring. This is very difficult to say. In one way or another, council has been part of my life for 46 years. I've done my best, but this has been one tough term. But I do feel it's time to give another person a go. So that's my last portfolio report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fredman. Wasn't expecting... Knew of the pending announcement, but wasn't expecting that today. And I think you're an interesting piece of history, the Gympie Regional Council. I know as a councillor in 2016, you had an ability as a member of the executive to bridge the gap between the bureaucracy and councils in a way that made councillors feel respected and wanted as part of the process and valued. Your retirement, I put in abbreviations, comments to from the organisation was, in my belief, a gross tragedy. For someone that was committed not only to the region but to the organisation in a way and with a level of humility and passion that not many people understand. To have done to you what was done was, I know, something that I could not personally tolerate and sit by idly. I think the organisation lost an immense asset on that day, and it's been a pleasure to have you here in the chamber to assist us with our understanding. Your history in the region and with the organisation is goes decades, and the loss of that corporate knowledge is something you've often talked about in terms of the organisation, but I think as councillors too, a term without you will create challenges for us to understand the history. So don't be surprised if Fredman Chateau will be visited on a number of occasions to get that historical context. Yeah, you are well respected in the broader community. In your role as a member of the executive and as a council staffer, you often had to deliver messages that weren't what ratepayers wanted, but you always treated people with dignity and respect. And I believe as a councillor you've done the same. It's been a pleasure having you here. It's been a pleasure leaning on you for advice and wisdom. We will surely miss you in a way that we will not comprehend until that seat is no longer filled by you. But I wish you and Deb, who has been a rock of support for you through this time and through the injustices or the injustice that you were subjected to, all the best in your retirement. And whilst you may have more time for cycling, may you continue with your dedication not to wear lycra. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Congratulations.
Through the chair, look, more can be said later on at a appropriate event, but I just only joined your journey recently. But on behalf of the organisation, from everything I've seen and interacted with you, you've been a great asset to the organisation, but also to our community. The things that stand out for me are your utmost integrity, your wit during our meetings to keep us all at the right level, and your care, your genuine care for the community and to make things happen. So thank you.
Councillors, that concludes all our agenda items for today, and thank you for your attendance. Thank you to the gallery for your attendance. Thank you, staff. Our meeting is closed. Councillors, if you can just stay, we have an update in relation to the weather event from Murray